We're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to the Montgomery County Delegation Joint Priorities Hearing. If you're having trouble hearing me, it's because the person next to you is still standing and talking. All right, welcome everybody to the Montgomery County Delegation Joint Priorities Hearing. This is our chance to hear from all of you. 87 of you have signed up to tell us what's on your mind. This hearing is not about specific bills, although you're welcome to bring up particular bills, but just a general hearing about the topics that you want to talk about. Open mic night, if you will. And of course, on all of these issues, it's just the start of a long conversation that will go through our legislative session in January. We are televised tonight, so keep in mind that 150 people, including Chairman Zucker's kids, are watching you on TV. Just a reminder about the sort of rules of engagement. Elected officials will be given 5 minutes to speak. Representatives of groups will be given 3 minutes to speak. Individuals will be given 2 minutes to speak. We'll call you up in panels of about 8. Whoever sits down first, please hit that mic and get started so we can be respectful of everybody's time. The light will turn yellow when you have 30 seconds left, and it will turn red, and there will be a beeping sound when your time is up. And Chairman Zucker and I will interrupt and cut you off just because we need to be respectful of everybody's time. Of course, we also have your written testimony that you've submitted as well. When you're done, please turn your mic off. It just is a little better for people watching on TV if there's only one mic on that witness table on at a time. And of course, there could be questions from the members of the delegation, or they could follow up with you after. Before we get started, Chairman Zucker, anything else you'd like to?
Just the senators from Montgomery County appreciate everybody coming out tonight, and we look forward to hearing your thoughts on where we may be able to be helpful in Annapolis. And with that, turn it to the House Chair, and we'll start with the first panel.
Thanks, Chairman Zucker. And let me also add, I'm joined by my colleague, Vice Chair Carr. I'm joined by my colleague, Vice Chair Carr, and congratulations to Chair Zucker and Vice Chair Lee, who were just reelected as Chair and Vice Chair of the delegation a few minutes ago. So we will start. We will start with our elected officials: County Executive Mark Elrich, Council Member Gabe Albernaz, Mayor Judd Ashman, Mayor Bridget Newton, and our School Board President Shevra Evans. County Executive, why don't you get us started?
So first of all, thank you all for coming out and having this hearing tonight. We really appreciate the attentiveness that you are paying to Montgomery County, and I just want to tell you how much I appreciated working with you during the last legislative session. I think it's important for us to have, build a strong working relationship and to make sure that I understand what you all are looking to do, so I can be supportive of that and make sure we communicate our needs to you. I'm going to focus on 4 things tonight. You can probably guess 3 out of the 4, maybe all 4. The first thing is Kerwin. I'm one of those who believes that Kerwin can be a game changer for education. And our school system, as you know, continues to grow. We got surprised with another 2,300 students this year, and we thought this was actually going to be lower than last year, and it turned out not to be that case. We continue to have a population that has high numbers of poverty and many, many second language speakers, and the necessity for school funding is just absolutely critical. We have historically spent over MOE. We went over MOE again last year, but no matter how much we spend, we continue to struggle to meet the needs of our residents. And Kerwin is not just good for Montgomery County, but it's a statewide approach to education that commits the state to higher degrees of funding that we think are going to make a huge difference. I'm particularly interested in the early childhood work that's being done. We're making an investment in Montgomery County. We've kind of set early childhood up as our priority. We have a pretty clear understanding this is the place that if we make an investment, it has the greatest opportunity of raising the level of our students. We struggle with half our students entering kindergarten 2 years behind. We want to make sure that doesn't happen, because the evidence says that if kids enter on an equal basis, they stay more likely at an equal basis, which means their outcomes, their readiness for jobs, all of that changes by what we do in the first few years of their life. We have a special needs population that continues to grow. We definitely need support for special needs programs, and I think you all understand the challenges that parents face and schools face with special needs teams. We have a strong team in Annapolis. I want to thank Nancy King and Delegate Kaiser and Mr. Ludke and our friend Rich Madalena from our side and Craig Rice from the council side for all being part of a group that we can work together with in Annapolis, and understand that you really value the Kerwin report, and that's important to us. I will segue into school construction, because as much as you can do to help us meet our operational needs, if we don't have classrooms, I don't have places to put the teachers. And so we need a two-pronged approach to this. We need to be able to build the classrooms that we need. We need the state to be able to support the classroom building, because we don't want to be in situations where we have to go into a moratorium because we don't have enough resources to provide the classrooms. And this is just critically important for us. So we want to be able to make sure we can do the economic development and carry out the kind of projects that we think are important, and we're going to need the construction money. So I'm really happy that Speaker Jones has said this was her #1 priority, and she said it on more than once and in more than one venue. So that's a good sign that it's really a #1 priority, and we're hoping this will be a #1 priority for all of you. I'll talk a little bit about our favorite road stuff, which is the 495, 270. The first thing is, I thought it was good news that the governor listened to me and decided to start at the American Legion Bridge. I pointed this out to him a year ago. So we've gotten to the point where they're actually starting on the bridge, which is important. The council continues to support working on the western side of the Beltway and coming up I-270. We think it can be accomplished with either reversibles, but it's actually feasible to squeeze in 2 lanes even if you don't do the reversible. So within the existing walls of 270, we think they can get the capacity they want. We would like to see us go forward with that. We'd hope they continue to work with us, because I think you all know they've never worked with us on this project. And we would like to continue to work on the CCT and remind people the CCT, other than a major transportation project for the northern part of the county, is critical to whether Science City goes on to stage 2. And you don't want the failure to build this project to become a failure for the county to be able to expand on the life sciences area. And the last thing is, help us on preemption. Protect us, that your help on the minimum wage and not letting us get preempted on the minimum wage actually transform the debate regionally and in the country to some degree. We will continue to be responsible. We do not want to be preempted. Thank you very much. And I want to thank my team, Melanie, Kathleen Boucher, Sarah Morningstar, Amy Salmon, and Wanda Wells and Verna Price. Thank you.
Thank you, County Executive. Councilman Albornoz.
Hello, good people. First of all, good evening. I want to thank all of you. I bring greetings on behalf of our Council President, Nancy Varro, and all of my colleagues. And I really want to start by giving a big thanks to all of you for the long hours that you put in, and I especially want to thank your families as well, because we know that you guys sacrifice as a team. You have the county's 2020 session priorities before you. You will note that the priorities list this year is short, a one-pager that is focused on what we believe will be the most important issues for the county as we see them today. There's also great alignment with the county executive's priorities and his testimony before you this evening. The 4 issues we've listed as our key priorities will be familiar to all of you. They reflect the critical importance of our public pre-K through 12 education system, the need for greater state investment in our infrastructure, and our constant concerns about state preemption that takes away our authority to make decisions locally. We know that many people are waiting to share their ideas with you tonight, so thank you for the opportunity to address these issues. I'll begin with Kerwin as well. For 3 years now, we've been following the Kerwin Commission and its work, since we know that it sets the stage for the relationships between MCPS, the county, and the state for many years to come. The funding work group assigned the responsibility of reworking existing funding formulas has concluded their work, and we give thanks to the full commission. There's a lot of information to digest, but we appreciate the finalization of the recommendations, and we were well represented on the funding work group by Rich Madalino, Senator Nancy King, Delegate Ann Kaiser, Delegate Eric Lutke, and Councilmember Craig Rice. Our staff has been working diligently over the summer and the fall to make sure we fully understand the impacts and the recommendations that have been made so far. We feel that we are well prepared to engage, and we're looking forward to being active participants as the plan is debated throughout the next 6 months. We are supportive of the goals of the Commission and commend the members of for their absolute commitment to developing a roadmap for ensuring student success, regardless of circumstances, and to help make sure that Maryland retains its competitive edge. We agree with Dr. Kerwin that this will be a game changer by recognizing the return on investment of early childhood education, that earlier identification and greater investment is necessary for students with special needs and those who are economically disadvantaged, that excellent teachers and staff are the backbone of our system, and the career and our college paths need to be pursued for all students as they advance through high school. And that accountability is crucial to ensure that these ambitious goals are being met, and if not, why not, so that the course can be adjusted. We are anxious for the Commission to finalize its recommendations. In the meantime, we want to continue to consider the potential impacts of the plan on Montgomery County and our system, with a focus on fairness. We are particularly interested in ensuring that the efforts we are currently making to close achievement gaps are recognized, including the level of spending we are already committing, not just for our pre-K initiatives, for example, but potentially how other expenditures in the county that the county makes on behalf of our school system. We want to make sure they're recognized. We will also be interested in understanding how new spending mandates will be phased. At some point, since our collective constituents are both state and local taxpayers, we will be interested in the state's financing strategy, again, from a fairness perspective. We echo the county executive's support for school construction, and we so appreciate the delegation's effort to ensure that we meet the demand of our growing school system. Just this year alone, our school system has added 2,800 students, more than 1,000 that were initially projected, which is, of course, the equivalent of a high school. We must keep pace with the construction demands of our students. And lastly, we do also want to focus on the 495 and 270 traffic mitigation. Like the county executive, we appreciate the governor's focus on this issue and applaud his interest and tenacity, but have concerns about the manner in which he has gone about partnering, or frankly not partnering in many instances, with our local jurisdictions. We were excited to hear the potential partnership with the state of Virginia, but lack few pieces of key details for us to really be able to get excited and get behind a plan when we don't know about its environmental impact and we don't know about its costs. We know you share those same concerns as us, and we look forward to working with you to ensure that this is a fluid process. Thank you all again for your dedication and public service, and we look forward to working with you this session. Thanks.
Good evening. I am so happy to be here. Thank you for allowing me to come here to talk about what's important for Montgomery County Public School System on behalf of my colleagues. Just want to also reiterate what I've heard stated today, that we really value and appreciate the relationship that we have with our state delegation, and we just want to continue to make certain that we keep our lines of communication open and continue to collaborate. I'm here to talk about what's important. 3 topics I'm going to focus on: Kerwin Commission.
Ms. Evans, if you could just state for the record your name.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
So
no problem.
Shebra Evans, President of the Board of Education. So I'll be talking about the Kerwin Commission, as well as how we define poverty in Montgomery County Public Schools and the construction bill. We support the work group's recommendations to update the current funding formulas to provide all of our students with a quality education in Montgomery County as well as in the state of Maryland. We support investments in early education, moving the high school, college, and career readiness indicator to the 10th grade, as well as having a robust set of pathway options for all of our students. We support the professionalizing and incentivizing the teacher career pathway. However, we just really want to make certain that there's equitable compensation for all of our educational employees, and that includes bus drivers, cafeteria workers, our paraeducators, as well as our principals and administrators. And we just also want to suggest that the legislature consider adding a career pathway for educational employees who are interested in becoming educators. You know, it's just really imperative that we continue to continue to have a local autonomy over education, and we just wanted to make note of that. So in terms of defining poverty, the federal guidelines for free and reduced price meals is incomes at or below 130% of the poverty level. For a family of 4, that's $25,750. In MCPS, we consider every child that receives free reduced price meals as being economically disadvantaged. However, the Maryland State Department of Education considers students who receive direct services as being economically disadvantaged, and that means that this only includes students who are receiving supplemental nutrition assistance and or temporary assistance for needy families. This includes students that are in foster care, that are homeless, that are immigrants, that are runaways, and we just really want to make certain that we are fully making you aware that funding implications are at stake. So they define it a little bit differently, and they use a direct certification with a multiplier. So the Kerwin Commission is suggesting that we use a state form to determine who is economically disadvantaged. We're okay with using that form. We just want to be able to continue to make certain that poverty is defined at or below 130% of the poverty level. This is important because only 16% of our students in MCPS receive direct services, whereas 34% as of 2018 were receiving free reduced price meals. So it's important that we use this measure so that we can make certain that we're including all of our students. In the area of the construction bill, there was a bill, House Bill 01, and we are very appreciative of the attention that you all are paying to the strong need in Montgomery County as well as throughout the state. We are the largest school system in the state of Maryland, the 14th largest district in the nation, and we have, as of November the 15th, 166,000 students. So as it was stated earlier, we've grown this year by additional over 2,700 students, and we just want to make certain that our construction program continues to be a success. And how we believe it to be success is that we're able to determine when we want to renovate, repair, and redo our schools, and we want to continue to make certain that we have this level of detail around the classrooms and everything else. Right now, we support the legislation. We just have some concerns that around the requirements for receiving the funds. The legislation will give control to the stadium authority over all public schools construction and remove the local autonomy over local needs. For example, the stadium authority would be able to determine the number and size of classrooms in a school regardless of what the school system has planned for that scale. We just want to be able to make sure that we're able to leverage our scale and be efficient. And we just ask you to make all these considerations. So at this time, I just want to say thank you, and I'll end my testimony right here.
Go ahead, Mayor. Just keep going down the line.
Okay, Judd Ashman, Mayor Gaithersburg, here to present the testimony on behalf of the city of Gaithersburg. And first, I'll echo the comments of gratitude both for our working relationship with all of you and for the service that you all tirelessly give on behalf of our community. So, starting with our legislative priorities, I want to talk about our police station project. As many of you know, last year the governor included $2 million in the budget to help fund our police station project. The new station would have holding cells and a DUI test facility, neither of which are in the current station, and both of which could be utilized not only by our city officers, but also by Maryland State Police, Montgomery County Police, Rockville City Police, and other area law enforcement agencies. As it went through the process last year, because it was such a tight budget, as they tend to be, the Assembly ended up cutting it, keeping $1 million of it intact and giving us pre-authorization for the $2 million in this year's budget. I want to publicly thank the members of this delegation who worked very, very hard to keep the $1 million in there, and we're hopeful that you all will see fit, if the governor does include that $2 million in the budget, to help shepherd it through. On transportation and transit, at last month's roadshow hearing, we joined the chorus of voices asking for the Quarter Cities Transitway to be restored in the CTP. The Quarter Cities Transitway is considered a significant link within the quarter and would help facilitate economic growth of an important life sciences sector in Montgomery County and Maryland. And we are grateful for those in our delegation who have been advocates for the project and ask that everyone join us in the push for its restoration. On a related topic, we want to safeguard municipal highway user revenues through the elimination of the sunset that's due to occur after FY 2024. Furthermore, to return full pre-recession funding beginning with that next budget, and tether highway user revenue funding to the consumer price index. I have it in this testimony as Consumer Protection Index. Forget that. As is currently done to adjust the gas tax rate. On small cell, this is another important issue to all of Maryland's 157 municipalities. We strongly oppose any further state and federal regulations that encroach on local governments exercising their own land use authority granted to them in order to facilitate the siting of small wireless infrastructure in their jurisdictions. We want to retain local authority. It should be up to us to strike that balance between our residents getting great service, but also protecting the aesthetics and the safety of our neighborhoods. We join the chorus on school construction. This has been a stated legislative priority of the city of Gaithersburg for many years, and it continues to be. We have a few great projects that are in the works for the city of Gaithersburg, but even with those, there's still more that's needed, and we appreciate all that you guys do to bring home as much as we can. In general, getting sort of broader, the city is in support of a state net neutrality bill if introduced. The FCC abolished net neutrality, and the D.C. Circuit Court just upheld that action on October 1st, but found that states could adopt their own net neutrality rules. So we would be in support if one of you or others would introduce that. And finally, we are following and will support county and state vaping legislation. Again, thank you all for all that you do.
Good evening, Chairs Corman and Zucker and members of the delegation. I'm Bridget Donald Newton, Mayor of the City of Rockville, and I bring greetings from the 66th Mayor and Council of Rockville. I will also echo the comments said previously. Thank you all. I saw many of you last evening at the NAACP Black and Brown Forum, and I really think that you do so much for us, and I just echo the comments about all the time you spend, so thank you very much. I won't reiterate everything, but on school construction, Twin Brook Elementary is older than I am. It is non-ADA compliant, and I will tell you they have a farms rate of 71% in a Rockville elementary school. So it is critical. We join with everyone about the need for the school construction funding. On 270, we are strongly in support of staying within the existing walls. We understand the need, but it's got to be transit and road. And why we're not starting from 370 North, I don't understand, but that's not tonight's discussion. Please work with us. The City of Rockville will be most impacted by widening 270 if that should happen, because we have homes right up against the right-of-way, a school, middle school, a nursing facility, and parks. We also would like to advocate to ensure that the State Highway Administration lives up to its commitment made to the city many, many years ago to build the West End Park Noise Barrier Project, protecting the homes north of the 270 Maryland 28 interchange. The city has budgeted $2 million. We've had it in reserve waiting for our partnership with SHA on that. That would fund 20% of the project. We also strongly advocate for an increase in funding for senior transportation services, recreation and wellness programming, aging in place in villages. I don't know if you're aware, but Rockville has a villages program with a fantastic leader, and we are starting villages in many of our neighborhoods. So far we have three. We endorse the 2020 MML and Rockville priorities to preserve local authority in the siting and aesthetics of small cell infrastructure and the full and permanent restoration of municipal HUR revenues. In closing, thank you for all you do, and please, Rockville stands ready to support and work with you. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your evening. I'm going to call up the next panel. It's going to be a panel of 5: Tricia Swanson, Barbara Ash, Stuart Edelstein, former County Council member Michael Knapp, and Charles Barnett. If you come up, and as soon as you get seated, please feel free to start in any order you want. Tricia, you want to kick it off, or? Perfect. Sounds good.
Good evening. I am Stu Edelstein, Executive Director of Universities at Shady Grove. Many of you attended the grand opening of the Biomedical Sciences and Engineering Education Building at USG, and I want to thank you for your support of this project. It will significantly expand our degree offerings in STEM fields, which will drive our economy and allow us to double the number of Montgomery County students we educate for well-paying jobs in these industries. The BSE represents a transformational moment in our development. Over the past 20 years, USG has matured into one of the most successful campuses within the University System of Maryland. We are the most diverse campus in terms of degrees offered. We have the most diverse student body in the state, and the students who are enrolled in the degree programs offered by our non-university partners have the highest graduation rate in the state. Equally important, more than half of our undergraduate students are the first in their families to get a college degree. And if it were not for USG, most of our 12,000 graduates would not have been able to obtain these degrees. Our successes would not have been possible without the strong advocacy, hard work, and engaged leadership of the USG Board of Advisors. You will hear from 2 of them in a moment. A JCR USM report on USG's future development charts a course for us which may significantly advance the county's interests in workforce and economic development. How the report's recommendations are addressed should be of concern to you. I strongly recommend the delegation take the following actions to ensure that USG can best serve Montgomery County. You will find them at the end of my written testimony. 1. Carefully follow USM's response to the JCR report during the session, and ask questions to ensure that the report's recommendations are effectively implemented. 2. Form a work group to include delegation members, county, and business stakeholders to speak with one voice and engage USM to provide influence, support, and resources to ensure that USG develops to meet the county's needs and interests. 3. Support the important work now underway between MCPS, MC, and USG to strengthen academic and career-ready pipelines to higher education degrees. This partnership is critical to our success in ensuring educational attainment and equity in opportunity. Bring together our higher education and business leaders to promote ways to strengthen partnerships and align our educational programs to ensure a competitive, skilled workforce, and develop the collaborative financial infrastructure to support a university-driven research agenda in the county. In conclusion, there is much leadership change underway in USM and the state. With that, it is imperative that we in Montgomery County speak boldly, deliberately, and with one voice in Annapolis on what we require for our higher education needs. Without that voice, this county will not significantly contribute to the necessary economic growth of the region and the state. Thank you for this opportunity and for your continued support.
Good evening. I am Charles Barnett, Senior Vice President of Engineering for Hughes Network System, and I serve on the university's at Shady Grove Board of Advisors. Let me begin by expressing my appreciation to the members of the Montgomery County Delegation for your longtime support of USG. As a major employer in Montgomery County, we know firsthand the importance of USG to our economy and our region, especially as its new STEM programming unfolds with the opening of the BSc. I have been at Hughes for nearly 3 decades, and I have seen our organization experience some extraordinary growth. To continue to grow, it is challenging for us to find and retain quality talent. As many at Hughes look forward to retirement, it will become even more challenging to fill their institutional knowledge and experience with a new generation of talented workers. Nearly 20 years ago, USG was established to meet workforce need for highly educated, skilled, and well-trained professionals. The nearly 80 undergraduate and graduate programs at USG provide students with a chance to earn high-quality, in-demand bachelor's and graduate degrees without ever leaving the county. With the opening of the BSc, we're looking forward to USG and its partner institution bringing in STEM programs in science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and medical science. Having obtained my doctorate in electrical engineering from the Clark School of Engineering at College Park and serving on its Electrical and Computer Engineering Advisory Board, I am particularly excited that the Clark School will be bringing a cutting-edge program exclusively to USG entitled Embedded Systems and the Internet of Things. This important progress is not enough. My company and the industry it supports needs more growth and expansion at USG. Our current workforce and the one we expect for the future will need continued upskilling to be competitive in the 21st century global marketplace. We need innovative and creative thinking about ways USG can develop and deliver a wide variety of cutting-edge graduate programs and post-baccalaureate certification. We'll continue to need flexible and highly technical graduate opportunities to not only retain our workforce, not only to retrain our workforce, but to retain it. I'm here today to ask for your combined support for the ongoing development of USG and an effective leader in creating the educated technical workforce of an economically successful Montgomery County. Financial support is needed to bring STEM programs as well as post-baccalaureate and graduate opportunities to USG in order to fully utilize the capacity now available in the BSc. With your continued support, USG will be able to produce exactly the kind of well-prepared and diverse STEM graduates we need at USG in order to fuel innovation and build the economic strength of our country, region, and state.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you and good evening. My name is Mike Knapp, and I'm here in my capacity as the USG Chair of the Board of Advisors. I want to start by saying thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Barnett, can you turn off your mic? Sorry, Councilman.
That's okay. I also want to start by saying thank you for your active and continued participation and your support of USG. Many of you have come to visit, your support for the BSc building, your participation on our commissions, on the Board of Advisors, and quite honestly, just your willingness to hear our students and visit with them when they come down to lobby and to understand the ways of Annapolis. You're all there and you understand the students are the reason that we exist, and you're willing to hear their stories because you know that that's who we are in Montgomery County, and so thank you for that. And on this, our 20th year, we really are Montgomery County's public university, and we've really emerged into that, and you've heard Stu talk about the role that we play in the students that we educate. We know that we provide the most affordable access to a four-year degree of any for our residents and students of anywhere in the region. We know that our students are all going to stay here when they graduate. We know that many of our students are likely not to get a four-year degree but for USG. And we're on the verge of taking that higher education in our community to the next level. And we need your help to be able to do that. We're at a very significant point of transition. We have a new chancellor. We'll have a new UMCP president, a new UMB president, and we'll also have a new executive director at USG at the conclusion of this school year. And so we have that. We have a commission that you will receive sometime in the next few weeks, we hope. And there's also a lot of discussion about what is higher education in Montgomery County. And we need to be able to kind of marshal all those forces and be able to chart a path forward. I was pleased to be able to serve as the co-chair of that commission with Ellen Herbst, who is the CFO for the system, and the objective for being able to do that was to put the right issues on the table. And I think we've got the right recommendations out there, but to Stu's point, our challenge is now what happens with them and where do they go next. Oftentimes a report goes on a shelf and we don't actually do anything after that. This needs to be the roadmap for how we grow going forward. The challenge will be there are a lot of things in there that still need to be defined in the details. And the system will be doing some of that, but we need you to work with us to make sure that those questions are asked to make sure that the right things get put in place. What is the role of the executive director? How will that play out? Will that executive director have the authority to be able to bring the programs we need to grow our workforce? Will we have the budget that allows us to actually grow to meet the needs of our workforce and what our businesses need? Will we be able to grow research partnerships through the rest of the university system and be able to have that happen through USG? We have a lot of things that the words will be there, but how does that actually get implemented and how does that work? And we need you to be able to help us make sure and ask those questions that when the USM comes before you and we come before you in the course of the next 90 days to be able to make that happen. The Board of Advisors is committed to working with you. We roll up our sleeves. We want to be there. But the challenge is to make sure that we as a county are speaking with one voice as to what we want higher education to be in Montgomery County. And if we can do that, we have the resources and the assets through USG to be able to be successful. But we need you to help us make sure those questions get asked and to make sure that we're driving the process forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Tricia Swanson, and I'm Vice President of Government Relations for the Montgomery County Chamber of Commerce. I'm here tonight on behalf of my nearly 500 members of the Chamber. But if I could editorialize for a second, I've officially been in this job in a year and a half. And the best part of the job, beyond working with all of you, of course, is learning about the diversity and strength in our business community. And when we're talking about diversity, it's diversity of size. We have companies that are 1 or 2 people, and we have companies that are headquartered here. We also have diversity in the industries that we're in. Those industries range from healthcare to hospitality to federal contracting to educational institutions to construction to technology and many things in between. And all of you should be very proud to represent a county with businesses that are doing revolutionary and innovative things. As an example, you just heard about the incredible work that Dr. Edelstein and USG is doing. They're directly answering a dire need for top talent, particularly as it relates to industries that will drive Montgomery County's economy and will ensure that our county is competitive regionally and nationally for economic growth. And speaking of talent, back in July, we had our annual board retreat. And we asked our board members, which are just as diverse as our business community, what's keeping you up at night? And the resounding answer was talent, access to attraction of and retention of top talent. So what does this mean for you, our policymakers? It means investments in education, operational and capital, transportation, transit and roads, early childhood education, business development, and housing affordability for our low and middle income residents, just to name a few. It also means giving businesses time to incorporate and catch up to recently enacted laws and regulations. And I'll close with a final thought. The state has been developing substantive plans for many important issues. Examples include a 10-year plan for our educational system. We've heard talks about Kerwin, and also a plan to ensure that we're responding to the climate crisis. These are both imperative and incredibly important goals, and ones that the Chamber strongly supports. Education obviously ties directly into workforce and talent, and our Chamber created the Green Business Certification Program 12 years ago with our local Department of Environment, understanding the need for companies to green their practices. And so it's time for a call to action for the creation of a 10-year economic growth plan to be able to support these other incredibly important initiatives. We've been actively partnering with our county government to develop and implement a county strategy for economic development, and would love the opportunity to have a similar strategy at the state level. I'm looking forward to continuing to work together. Please know that the Chamber is a trusted resource for you and your staff. If you have ideas, questions, or want to brainstorm with business leaders, please do reach out to me. And a special thank you to those that have taken me up on that offer. I feel like we've had a lot of great conversations, and I look forward to working with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. You showed everybody how it was done, so thank you. Ms. Ashton.
Yes. Chairs Corman, Zucker, Vice Chairs Carr and Lee, members of the delegation, my name is Barbara Ash, and I'm National Director of the Veteran Institute for Procurement and President of the Montgomery County Chamber Community Foundation. The Veteran Institute for Procurement, or VIP, as we like to call it, trains veteran-owned businesses nationwide on how to accelerate their success in the federal marketplace. It is an in-residence, 3-day training program that takes place here in Montgomery County at the Bolger Center. And VIP programs are offered nationwide at no cost to participants. Since 2009, VIP has trained 1,350 companies from 49 states, D.C., Guam, and Puerto Rico. Over 400 of its graduates are here in Maryland and 113 in Montgomery County. And VIP works. VIP graduates nationwide, on average, grow 63% the 1 year after graduation and over 350% in the second year. And here in Montgomery County, our VIP graduates are some of the fastest growing companies in the nation. Brian Flood, President and CEO of Decision Point, a Gaithersburg service-disabled, veteran-owned small business and a 2012 VIP graduate. Wanted to be here this evening. Unfortunately, he had a family emergency, but he wanted to tell you, to ask you for your continued support for VIP. So I am thrilled to be able to share with you his success story. Decision Point is the second fastest growing IT management company nationwide. Ranked number 164 on Inc. 5000 list this year, and he is the 13th fastest growing company in the Washington, D.C. region. Last year, another VIP graduate, Ahmed Ali, who is CEO and president of Tista Technology. I am thrilled to share that for the 9th year in a row, his company is one of the fastest growing companies in the nation. Both Brian and Ahmed are now instructors in the VIP program, sharing their insights and lessons learned and paying it forward for the next generation of veteran-owned businesses right here in Montgomery County. In closing, I ask for your continued support of $150,000 for VIP and the veterans it serves. You have successfully fought for this funding in the past, and veteran businesses here in Montgomery County are counting on you. Thank you for this opportunity to testify this evening.
Thank you so much. Enjoy your evenings. We will call up the next panel. I'm sorry. Senator Kagan.
Just a super quick thing, because we've got a good audience. A shout out to USG and Montgomery College to make sure that the faculty, staff, administrators, and board all know that we have legislative scholarships and we are eager to help your students. So please make sure they're in touch with their legislators and applying. We have tens of thousands of dollars to give away, and we want to support their education. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Great. Good PSA. Gloria Aparicio Blackwell, Patricia Winters, Melissa Mckenna, Susan Karen, Sharon Friedman, Sally Myrick, Sheldon Fishman, and Shira Wokenfeld. And please, one of you just start when you come up, and let's just move down the line. Make sure you turn your mic off after you are finished, please.
You go.
Go ahead.
Okay. Buenas noches. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today, and thank you for all your hard work and your commitment. My name is Gloria Aparicio Blackwell. I am the chair of the Montgomery College Board of Trustees. Dr. Paula and several of my colleagues from the board are with me. We want to thank all of you for your support and commitment to education. Because of you, MC can empower students to change their life. Our alumni, in turn, empower our community, fueling the workforce and helping Montgomery County thrive. Before I continue, let me ask you a question. What does a vice president from Hughes, an FDA biomedical engineer, and a chief technology officer at Learn-Cillian have in common? Yes, you guessed right. MC, Montgomery College. Even for me, from an ESOL student to now being the chair of the board. How incredible a story. And it's not special. It's because of you and your opportunities. Jim Muir is the vice president at Hughes Network System, a global leader in providing broadband satellite network and services. After transferring to Florida State, he ultimately joined Hughes, where he flourished. Jim is both an industry and community leader who moved our county forward. Shruti Mistry holds a degree from Montgomery College, Georgia Tech, and Johns Hopkins University. Today, she is a biomedical engineer at the Food Drug Administration. She leads the process to review and approve pacemakers, defibrillators, and other devices for patient use in the United States. Looking back, Shruti attributes her success to Montgomery College, where she received foundation skills in smaller classes with attentive professors. Ian Lotinsky is the Chief Technology Officer for Learn-Cillian, a company that provides NCPS math curriculum for grades 6 to 8. He grew up in Montgomery County and attended a small private school. Ian opted to stay close home for his higher education, knowing that Montgomery College offers what he calls a good value education. Ian is now a leader at Learn Zillion. Ian's entrepreneurship fuels our economy and helps to create the next generation of ready workers. Because of your support, MC empower these alumni. In turn, these alumni now empower our community and our economy. They are highest skilled workers that your community college helped to produce. Residents depend on us for access to affordable, high-quality education. Employers depend on us to create a pipeline of talented, skilled employees to empower their organization's productivity and competitiveness. Thousands of our alumni work here, live here, and play here. MC alumni enrich our community. MC also leads in meeting the workforce needs more and more.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So much. Just keep going to your right, please.
Good evening, esteemed senators and delegates. My name is Patty Winters, proud team leader of Phoenix Rising, Maryland
Would you mind turning off
Recovery
your mic?
School Advocates. Okay. Montgomery County has bragging rights to opening the first recovery school, the Phoenix School, in 1979. As this creative yet simple strategy of offering students a place to resume their education with peers also striving to stay drug-free caught on, and the opiate crisis launching, the Phoenix School closed in 2013 because the students were combined with other alternative programs. The relapse rate predictably escalated and enrollment dropped to 3, and so it was closed. Founding director of the OOCC, Clay Stamp, came to our showing of Generation Found. He was not familiar with recovery education, but after watching the film, he got it and designated a grant that became the seed fund so our recovery academic program could open last fall. Superintendent Jack Smith, his staff, and the Board of Education also got it. They all understood that our children in recovery cannot return to the same persons, places, and things that lured them into the drug culture. Rather, that they need to be surrounded by peers that share their struggles and desire to have a prosperous future. So MCPS partnered with The Landing, which provides the recovery services to establish RAP. Everyone needs to grasp the daily challenges of having a child in recovery from any substance use disorder, too often with a co-occurring disorder, to appreciate why recovery education is so vital to our children who need it and why it is a concrete solution toward defeating the opiate crisis. Recovery education expert Andrew Finch explained why this is in his testimony to MCPS last year. He said opening the doors to students who have not yet become addicted to opiates attacks the opiate epidemic at its roots. Closing the doors to students at high risk who have not yet developed an opiate problem could unintentionally allow the crisis to fester. This particular group of students includes the growing number of those becoming addicted to nicotine at an alarming rate from vaping. Also included are those who become addicted to alcohol, marijuana, amphetamines, other drugs harmful to their brain development and health. You are in a critical position to legislate funding for the Landing and RAP so our children in recovery are spared the revolving door nightmare of treatment and relapse that too often ends in incarceration, overdose, or suicide. Visit RAP and see for yourself how it is a game changer that empowers these tweens and teens to regain their self-respect and ultimately contribute to Maryland's prosperity as responsible citizens. Thank you for all you do.
Good evening. My name is Melissa Mckenna. Thank you very much for this opportunity to present my concerns. As the daughter of 2 pharmacists, I had a house full of chemistry and math. Not my best subjects. That was English. But I've grown up to respect scientific research, proven medicines, and therapies. There is no long-term research on the long-term use of recreational marijuana. It doesn't exist. It's a scheduled drug. Therefore, I beg you, please do not legalize recreational marijuana, and especially not to fund anything for our students. You know I'm here for Kerwin, and yes, please support the Kerwin recommendations and absolutely fund it as much as possible, but not through a soda or beverage tax. I've been to Philly, been there, paid that. It doesn't work. Or through sports betting. Without the permanent funding, the gains we made this past year will end, and local jurisdictions will be on the hook to pay the full freight, and it won't happen. The magnitude of education funding that is required is staggering. Just one example. This year, Montgomery County got $4 million, and with that, we created 402 new pre-K slots for 4-year-olds. To reach just the 4-year-old siblings of our 35% of MCPS students in poverty would cost $42 million alone. But there is an answer, and not just my urging, as usual, for the non-tax option of table game revenue. Several states have flat rates. It's not impossible. It can be higher than 15%. But the answer is to protect and fund our future, the best of both worlds, our state and our future and our children. And that would be through a revised Healthy Climate Initiative, funded by taxing our highest carbon polluting energy manufacturers to primarily fund the Kerwin Commission, while also protecting small businesses and low-income individuals with refunds. Thank you very much.
Delegate Corman, Senator Zucker, and members of the delegation. My name is Sharon Friedman, and I'm the director of Montgomery Moving Forward. Thank you so much for the opportunity to testify. MMF is a collective impact initiative of nonprofit Montgomery here in the county. We are leaders like Mike Knapp, Kevin Beverly, Diego Uruburu, Susan Madden, and Tricia Swanson, working across sectors to engage our entire community, business, government, education, nonprofits, the faith community, philanthropy, and families, with one goal in mind: to move Montgomery forward. Our current focus is building a stronger early care and education system for Montgomery County. MMF's commitment to ECE advances our key goal: to support and sustain the workforce of today and ensure the skilled workforce of tomorrow, to expand economic opportunities for all and advance a thriving Montgomery County. For the 2020 session, MMF has 2 areas to call to your attention. Number 1, address the 0 to 5 opportunity in the Kerwin Commission. MMF supports the work of the Commission with respect to its work in the expansion of pre-K. However, MMF has called for a well-resourced and coordinated system of birth to 5 early care and education to ensure that every child is ready to learn. Expanded pre-K is an important first step, but it is not sufficient to overcome opportunity gaps and close achievement gaps. Number 2, engage the business community in early care and education. MMF has worked diligently to engage the business community in the conversations about the future of early care and education. As part of this effort, we've developed an online early care and education toolkit for employers in Montgomery County. Stay tuned for an invitation to a webinar to learn about it. The toolkit includes resources for employees and employers while making the dollars and cents case for why supporting ECE is smart business. Going forward, we ask that you support some increased funding for the ECE toolkit. As we launch in January 2020, we hope that the toolkit will be available to go statewide. Additional resources are necessary to do so. Such toolkits are a best practice and effectively advance ECE in other jurisdictions. I hope we can count on you to advance our Kerwin Commission priorities and help us to expand the toolkit. In summary, we look forward to working with each of you to build a 0 to 5 ECE system to support and sustain the workforce of today and ensure the skilled workforce of tomorrow. I thank you for the opportunity to testify this evening. Attached to your testimony is a set of early care and education, Kerwin guiding principles that we hope you'll look at to help guide you. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Sheldon Fishman. I've lived in Silver Spring for over 40 years. Yeah, that's older than some of you. My family has been well served by Maryland and Montgomery County. Our 4 children were well educated by MCPS. Two of our grandchildren live in Montgomery County. This family is going to be around for a long time. I've been a long-time advocate of transparency and accountability, and I thank you for live streaming the delegation meetings. This delegation supported a local bill in 2009 introduced by Vice Chair Al Carr, requiring that MCPS disclose spending on a searchable website. It was patterned after the similar bills at the federal, state, and county agencies. The same year, you were able to achieve passage of that bill in the Maryland General Assembly and signature into law by Governor O'Malley. Your 2009 bill inspired successful passage of bills requiring spending disclosure of school systems in Howard County, Prince George's County, Anne Arundel County, and Baltimore County. Bravo. Montgomery County Public Schools has been doing a great job of implementing this website. Unfortunately, in 2019, the General Assembly passed H. Bill 355, which expands the requirements to all states, but it also repeals the local requirement. And that has adversely affected the availability of this data to Montgomery County residents. So I ask you to please contact MCPS to encourage them to make a commitment to continue posting spending on the local website in the same timely manner as before HB 355 was enacted. And I also ask you to please contact the Maryland Department of Budget and Management to improve the state website.
Thank you, Sheldon.
Thank you.
Go back to the end here.
My name is Shira Wokenfeld, and I am a Montgomery County organizer with Jews United for Justice, JUFJ. JUFJ represents almost 5,000 Jews from across Maryland who act on our shared Jewish values by pursuing social and economic justice and racial equity in our local communities. Our Torah teaches us that all people are created b'tselem Elohim, in the divine image, with inherent and equal dignity and value. We're called upon to act to end discrimination and oppression to ensure that all people have sufficient resources and are treated with respect and dignity by the government. Together, we've taken important steps to move Maryland forward, but too often, we see reflections of the iniquities that faced our ancestors. All people have a right to safety and prosperity in Maryland, regardless of immigration status or documentation. We should pass the Maryland Trust Act and end state law enforcement collaboration with ICE so that nobody, regardless of immigration status, has to fear deportation or family separation when they seek community services or help from the police. We must also overturn Governor Hogan's veto of the expanded Maryland DREAM Act so that DACA recipients don't face unfair barriers to public education. Marylanders should not have to choose between work and caring for family. Nearly everyone needs time away from work at some point to care for a loved one, deal with a serious illness, or welcome a baby, but most people can't afford to take unpaid leave. We must pass the Time to Care Act to provide replacement income to people who need to take up to 12 weeks off from work to take care of themselves or their loved ones. JUFJ believes that law enforcement should serve and protect everyone, and we must be able to hold police accountable when they cause harm. We ask that you amend the Maryland Public Information Act to allow for police disciplinary records to be released to the public and ensure public participation in holding officers accountable. All people should be treated with respect and dignity, regardless of whether or not they've been previously incarcerated. People who have been incarcerated, especially Black and brown people who are unjustly targeted because of their race, face marginalization and barriers to housing and employment. We can tear down some of those barriers by establishing a women's pre-release facility in Maryland, expanding charges eligible for expungement, prohibiting interrogation of minors without guardians or lawyers present, and providing compensation for victims of wrongful convictions. Finally, we urge you to support Montgomery County's Just Cause Eviction Bill to stop landlords from evicting people for no justified reason by not renewing leases. We appreciate your leadership and applaud the good work we've done together in the past. Let's continue building a Maryland that works for us all. Thank you.
Good evening, members of Montgomery County Delegation. My name is Sally Murick, and I sit on the Executive Board of SEIU Local 500 as the Vice President for the Paraeducator Chapter. SEIU Local 500 represents over 20,000 working people in Maryland, Washington, D.C., and Virginia. The local represents the support staff in the Montgomery County Public School System, family child care providers across the state of Maryland, adjunct faculty at several Maryland colleges and universities, as well as other workers. I applaud your passage of the legislation on the recommendations of the Blueprint for Maryland's Future and the inclusion of incentive grant compensation. And now we need to fund it. We all recognize that this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to change the dynamics of education in our great state. We cannot let this moment pass and must ensure its success. As a member of SEIU Local 500 and the 9,500 Montgomery County Public Schools support professionals we represent, I ask that you consider all the school employees that make our system work every day for all our students. MCPS is recognized as a leader in public education, although we know we always have work to do to improve. We urgently need the extra funding that this bill will ensure. Language in the bill addresses only teaching staff, but MCPS does not exist only on the skills of our great teachers. It is a collaborative effort between the teachers and also the talents and dedication of our principals and support professionals. Raising awareness of one entity over another is not wise nor prudent. Raising one leg on a three-legged stool will only create imbalance and tension that may eventually topple the entire stool. Our district works because we value all our employees. Our SEIU members transport students on 1,100 buses every day. Our food services staff prepare the breakfast and lunches that may be the only meals of the day for about a third of our students. Our staff, students, and visitors and support, our office staff, welcome staff, students, and visitors and support the daily school activities. Our maintenance staff keep the schools warm and cool during the seasons. Our technology staff support the technology that integrates our operations and our student learning. Our 3,000 paraeducators, media assistants, English composition assistants, and other educational support professionals directly touch and impact the daily learning of all our students, and our security staff keep us all safe. This is a request to include in the Blueprint for Maryland's Future the due respect and compensation for all educators that instruct and touch the lives of our students. And thank you for always being accessible and working on behalf of all our county residents.
Good evening. My name is Susan Karen, and I'm advocating for adoption of more trauma-informed care approaches. Oprah Winfrey calls the Adverse Childhood Experiences, or ACEs study, a game changer. The former president of the American Academy of Pediatrics says that ACEs is the single greatest unaddressed public health threat today. Conducted by the CDC and Kaiser Permanente, ACEs is one of the largest studies of childhood abuse, neglect, and household dysfunction. Here are some findings. Almost 2/3 of us have at least one ACE. In other words, childhood trauma is common and most of us keep it hidden. Individuals with 4 or more ACEs have exponentially higher rates of depression, suicide, substance use, cancers, heart disease, obesity, and even asthma, diabetes, and dementia. The CDC estimates that the lifetime economic burden of ACEs is $124 billion. Trauma-informed care is the antidote. It is not therapy. Rather, it is a community approach and norm that strives to, above all, do no harm and to promote resiliency. Policies focus on having communities and governments modify their practices to make individuals feel safe and to maintain community trust and transparency. It sounds very kumbaya, but it is actually evidence-based, and findings show that individuals are more likely to seek treatment, and when they do, they have better outcomes. There are already some great models. Baltimore and Oakland are leaders in community and health models. Philly has a program for police engagement. Washington is a model for schools, and Pennsylvania prisons have adopted a correctional trauma-informed care model. ACEs is groundbreaking, and trauma-informed care has the power to change the long-term health and well-being of Marylanders. You play an important role in this effort, first by becoming more educated about existing practices, and then by looking at your proposed policies through a trauma-informed lens. Thank you.
Thank you. Delegate Fisher-Hidalgo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Mckenna, I want to
first of all, thank all of you for coming out. And you said something that, that I took note on that I wanted to dig a little deeper on. You were talking about carbon pricing as a way to potentially fund Kerwin. Is that what you were saying? Are you aware of how much money that could generate? What kind of revenue that could generate for Kerwin?
Yes, but I realize it wouldn't all be for Kerwin. We need to make sure that we protect individuals and businesses that would be negatively impacted from the charge that would be inevitably passed on to them.
Right. So would it surprise you to know that after we've done all that you're just talking about, we could generate up to $350 million for Kerwin in the first year?
No, I'm not surprised at all.
Okay. Would you be willing to come to Annapolis and testify on these bills?
Absolutely. I've been there plenty of times.
Thank you. I look forward to seeing you in Annapolis this session.
Excellent. See you then.
Well, thank you very much. We look forward to seeing you in Annapolis. And I know Delegate Frazier Hidalgo will look forward to seeing you in Annapolis. But with that, thank you very much. I'm going to call up the next panel. Rick Meyer, Tessa Lackman, Sandra Crow, Nancy Wallace, Marion Eddy, Anna Pritchard, Catherine Katzen, and Robert Janku. And as soon as you're at the table, please feel free to start. Please. And just be sure to, when you turn on the mic, be sure to state your name.
I'm Nancy Wallace, co-chair of Montgomery County Green Party. Our party recommends major reform of the legislature's processes to address the crises of the climate emergency and the lack of fair citizen-based representative democracy. Our legislative processes have led to a near paralysis that the planet cannot afford. The rule of thumb that it takes 3 years to get even a good bill through the Maryland legislature is now dangerous, stopping critical climate policies and demoralizing our citizens. The Green Party of the U.S. 10 years ago created the Green New Deal, and today the Green Party of Montgomery County proposes Green Democracy, a package of state reforms based on 4 principles. Number 1, nimble. We must have a government that is able to act quickly on the massive transformations needed for climate catastrophe. Changes in administrative procedures, voting, and expanded resources for legislators, such as more staff, to consider major new policies. Number 2, citizen equality. Every citizen must have equal representation, with their elected representative having as much power to introduce, to present, and influence legislation as any other representative. Our system currently undervalues citizens of newly elected delegates and overvalues those of longtime delegates. Number 3, citizen empowerment. Citizens must be able to authorize major policy changes directly, regardless of the legislature's decisions. We need the citizen referendum so common in other states. Number 4, true majority representation. We must have real representative democracy in every election, reflecting the majority of the electorate's preferences through ranked choice voting. But not only for public elections, but RCV with on-the-record voting within the state legislature. The specific proposals are in the written testimony in your packages. I'll name a few here. Eliminate the 3 readings tradition from 240 years ago. Every bill must be voted on in the order in which it was introduced. Committee chairs cannot kill bills. The session should be extended to at least 6 months with extension in pay. The legislature should have the power. We have a planet to save. It's funny, but it's also deadly serious. You cannot respond in 90 days out of 365 to what we have to do to American society and economy today. The legislature should have the power to rearrange budget items. This is absolutely key to quickly shifting resources to where climate transformation needs it the most. Each committee should elect its own chair. The leadership and committee's chair's duties are only administrative. There's no seniority in choice of committees. Every vote should be a recorded vote and available online for citizens to see immediately. You're our representatives. We're paying your salary. We want to see how you vote. In conclusion, we must have a way for many new ideas to see the light of day. After 240 years, major reform to our Maryland legislative processes is desperately needed for our survival. Thank you.
Thank you. If you could make sure you turn off your mic, and then let's move on to the next person to your right.
Hi, my name is Robert Janku. I'm representing Montgomery County, Clear Vistas, and my local HOA, Wesley HOA.
We want to preserve the clean and uncluttered views in our residential neighborhoods. Our delegates should work together to reach compromise and consensus. You guys don't all the time. In the case of utility meters, citizens should be given a choice between hardwired, self-reading, and cellular. In this way, everyone wins. The utility gets a reduction in the expense of reading the meters, and the customer is given a choice. In case of cell towers, you should continue to let counties decide what they want. There are neither legal reasons nor technical reasons to place 5G cell towers in people's front yard. Therefore, you don't need any legislation to force people to do it. You can get all the 5G you want without a need for cell towers in people's front yard. I looked at all the lobbyists. They all came to 7 meetings I attended, and I wrote this, 78-page booklet here, rebuttals to everything they said. And you can find it, I know it's technical, tinyurl.com, rational 5G. Some delegates may find this hard to believe. Instead of turning to lobbyists to hear a different story, you should call hearings like Congress does with invited witnesses to verify what we are saying. Take a lawyer, Sheldon Pine, who lives in the city of Gaithersburg. He spoke to the city council of Gaithersburg, gave his testimony to the effect that Fourth Circuit Court, Maryland's court, allows jurisdictions to reject cell towers in the utility right-of-way in like 4 different sightings. So Gaithersburg allows cell towers in other places so they can decide where they want. One of the things they can exclude is the public utility right-of-way. Another very interesting lawyer is Joseph Van Eaton, who won federal and state cases brought by Crown Castle. Joe assisted Gaithersburg in their zoning ban to ban cell towers in front of residential homes. Joe is a Montgomery County litigator for the FCC, against the FCC. Invite Edwin Mars, who participated in the recent case where United Ketowa banned the Cherokee Indians versus the FCC. The D.C. Court of Appeals concluded FCC did not adequately address possible harms. Include real estate experts to get estimate on the effects on property. We know they're going down. It's just lobbyists say otherwise, but it's just total fantasy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We can start all the way to the end here. If you wouldn't mind turning off your mic, Mr. Jenku. Thank you very much. Ma'am, please. Welcome.
Hello. Okay, I'm live. My name is Marian Eady. I'm here representing Friends of the Earth, again to oppose any legislation at the state level which would preempt local authority to regulate a rollout of smart cell antenna for 5G. You're going to hear a lot about health impacts. You may not be aware of potentially devastating impacts this could have on birds, bats, bees, and any creatures reliant on navigation. And also, 5G will drive a huge increase in greenhouse gas emissions, undercutting whatever else we might do on climate change. An exhaustive study reported in the Professional Journal of the Institute of Electronic and Electronics Engineers said, and I quote, "Wireless technologies will continue to consume at least 10 times more power than wired technologies when providing comparable access rates and traffic volumes." You may not think that's a big deal now, but it will be. Global digital energy demand is now increasing by 9% a year, according to the SHIFT project, an international team of scientists, engineers, and telecommunication experts. We face a tsunami of data, a perfect storm driven by the Internet of Things, robots, video surveillance, driverless cars, live streaming videos, and ever more trivial applications offered by an industry eager to create new products and market. We need to make data transmission as energy efficient as possible, and we have options: fiber optics, Ethernet. 5G is not the way to go. Why does the industry want it so much? Largely to make and save money. They would like to abandon expensive wired networks, lay off all those maintenance workers and let our energy consumption skyrocket. The Montgomery County Council held hearings yesterday on this issue. Many people could not testify because the slots were full. Of the speakers supporting the text amendment to enable 5G, all except 2 were hired guns, people who hoped to make money on a 5G rollout. Almost all the citizens were opposed. I also would note that a lot of the demand for the wireless is trivial things. We wring our hands because our children are glued to their screens and tuning out the physical world. Yet some would claim that no sacrifice is too great to ensure that they all stay connected all of the time. Does this make sense to you? Not to me.
Thank you very much. Next.
Hello, I'm Tessa Lockman. There are potentially very serious health risks with 5G that are not being addressed in the rush to roll out 5G. I request that you oppose any rollout of small cell antenna for new 5G technology in Maryland based on the current science of the harm of 4G and until all scientific studies have been completed to ensure the safety of 5G. The FCC's guidelines, according to the EPA, FDA, NIOSH, and U.S. Department of Interior, are flawed and inadequate. They have not been updated since 1996, and the FCC's guidelines are based on science from the 1980s and 1990s. The FCC order is just starting to be tested in court and is currently being litigated by 40 jurisdictions. In August, the D.C. Court of Appeals overturned the FCC's effort to eliminate NEPA and historic review and installation of 5G. This is the beginning of a significant movement forward in protecting our health and environment. The National Toxicology Program of the National Institutes of Environmental Health Sciences concluded that cell phone radiation caused health effects in the cell phone radiation-exposed rats and mice, including the development of cancers. There are other effects besides cancer that have been studied. These include neurotoxicity, immune system imbalances, DNA damage, and serious impacts on sperm morphology, endocrine, and cardiac function. According to the biochemist Dr. Martin Paul, the highly pulsed millimeter waves of 5G are much more dangerous than the non-pulsed electromagnetic fields that we're used to. Many of the harmful effects are due to increased intracellular calcium throughout our bodies, and when combined with the effects of highly pulsed millimeter waves, the results are super additive, potentially leading to very serious health problems, while the telecom industry says it's safe. Telecom industry officials admitted on February 6, 2019 to Senator Blumenthal that there is no research being done or planned going forward by them to evaluate the potential health risks of 5G. Since the telecom industry has done no research, and since 5G uses millimeter waves about which there are paucity of health studies, several states have already moved forward with establishing a commission to study the health effects of 5G. I will be providing a copy of the state's bills that have been passed or proposed, and I encourage Maryland to move forward with a similar bill. 180 scientists and medical doctors from the European Union wrote in their 5G appeal, the Nuremberg Code applies to all experiments on humans, thus including the rollout of 5G with new, higher RF EMF exposure. Already published scientific studies show that there is an a priori reason to believe in real health hazard. On a personal note, about 25 of my relatives were killed in the Holocaust. The principles of the Nuremberg Code apply to all experiments on humans, not just those done in the past. I have 2 friends who are extremely sensitive to the presence of microwave frequencies. One had to abandon her house until a newly installed smart meter was removed. They are the canaries in the coal mine, and we should take heed.
Thank you very much. Next. Just turn on your, perfect, great.
Thank you, Senators and Delegates, and other ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for letting me speak with you. My name is Anna Pritchard. I've lived in Silver Spring since 1965. I'm a doctor of naturopathy, and before that I was a registered nurse for 35 years. I'm also a massage therapist and a certified nutritional consultant. Excuse me. First, I'd like to say that I do not consent to additional radio frequency microwave radiation. I have personally experienced a severe adverse effect of microwave radiation, and that I cannot, and therefore I cannot have any microwave radiation antennas near or at my home. I became aware that over time I was experiencing a significant memory loss, learning, and recall problems. An electrical engineer came to my house to test my house and found that I had a wireless phone that was against the wall behind which was where my head was when I slept. and also that I had a gas smart meter on my house, among other problems. After keeping my cordless phone unplugged and had my gas smart meter removed, very soon my cognitive abilities came back to normal. If I had gone to my doctor with these symptoms, I would probably have been diagnosed with dementia and early Alzheimer's and maybe gone downhill even further. But it was not me. It was the radiation affecting me. I hate to think of others who may have the same thing happen to them and not know that it's the devices in their home that continue to go downhill with those terrible diagnoses. 5G will be pulse-modulated microwave radiation, which is much more harmful to all living organisms, especially the birds and the bees. 3 and 4G will still be in the atmosphere, therefore there will be a far more exponentially increase in radiation than we have now. Scientists have published in the tens of thousands of studies on microwave radiation. This is an established science showing great harm to all living organisms. Dr. Martin Paul, a PhD in biochemistry and genetics, found that microwave radiation severely damages the DNA in the cells and other parts of the cell, which lead to huge amounts of inflammation, causing many degenerative disorders, including cancer, autism, neurological diseases, ADHD, blood-brain barrier permeability, decreased immunity, and many more. These are serious impairments and illnesses that take away life. The rush deployment of 5G radiation in close proximity to our homes, schools, etc., before Montgomery County has time to study its safety is, in my opinion, irresponsible. In the Constitution, it says that you will protect and promote the general welfare, which means the concern of the government for health and safety of its citizens. Montgomery County is one of the most highly educated counties in the country and must protect its residents, pets, and environment by declining the close proximity of radiation. In the website Physicians for Safe Technology, there were articles just recently called The First Report of 5G Injury. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And please be sure to turn off your mic. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Catherine Katzen, and I'm an elementary school teacher in a Title I school. Thank you for the support you give teachers in our efforts to support our students' mental, social, and physical well-being, and to nurture the realization of their full academic potential. I request that you oppose any rollout of small cell antennas for new 5G technology in Maryland based on current science of the harm of 4G and until all scientific and medical studies have been completed to ensure no safety, health, or environmental impacts of 5G. As previously stated, in 2018, the NIH U.S. National Toxicology Program found a clear evidence of the association between radiofrequency exposures at the levels of the 5G rollout and gliomas, brain cancer, and heart schwannomas. Additionally, the World Health Organization has categorized cell phone radiation as a Class 2B possible carcinogen in the same category as lead. Children's skulls are softer, thinner, and have more fluid content. Their brains are still developing into their mid-20s. The World Health Organization has already indicated that they have found that the levels of RF energy deposition in children's brains are twice as high in certain regions and 10 times as high in their bone marrow compared to those of adults. On July 12, 2012, the American Academy of Pediatrics wrote the FCC asking them to consider the disproportionate impact of these exposures. I'm telling you today that I do not consent to this experiment, and I respectfully ask you to adhere to your oath to protect the general welfare of your citizens. Thank you.
My name is Sandra Crow, and I'm with Rockville Residents for Safe G. Tonight I'd like to make the argument that it's too soon for 5G. The bottom line is that there are no current health studies on the potential hazards of 5G. And without them, it's really too soon for us to know whether we are in fact being guinea pigs for a technology that hasn't been vetted. We do, however, have data from 3 and 4G. In one study done by Dr. Deborah Lee Davis, 3 beehives were monitored. 1 hive exposed to 3G, 1 to 4G, and 1 no exposure. The hives exposed to both 3 and 4G both lost their ability to make honey, reproduce, and to be viable. The one with no cell exposure thrived. Meta message there. The millimeter waves weaken cell membranes, not only in bees, but in us as well, so that toxins can enter us all more easily. Evidence of this is that doctors often use millimeter radiation to enhance the uptake of chemotherapy. It's really good when you need it for medicinal purposes, but not for when you don't. Dr. Martin Paul, who you've heard cited here a number of times, and the reason he's been cited so many times, he's the professor emeritus of biochemistry and basic medical sciences for Washington State University. He's done more research into this issue more than anybody else out there, and he cites at least 4 concerns for 5G. Number 1, fires. Terpenes in plants are flammable. When 5G activates terpenes, this doesn't only make them more flammable, but spreads the response in other plants. The plants are talking to each other. With little to no wind, it increases fire risk. Issue number 2, early onset dementia or Alzheimer's. Some epidemiological studies indicate this. The beta protein amyloid increases, and thus dementia risks do as well. 2 studies with rats support this. Issue number 3, autism and ADHD. Right now we have ADHD in 1 out of 38 people. That could go to 1 in 4. And all the neurodegenerative diseases are affected by the extra intracellular calcium, which happens as a result of RFR. That's the damage. And number 4, privacy. It'll be Big Brother in a way even Orwell could not have imagined when he wrote 1984 and 1949. For conclusive proof for RFR from 3, 4, and possibly 5 is dangerous, check out the World Health Organization classified it as 3G as a 2B possible carcinogen in 2011 and 4 as a Class B in 2019. BioInitiative and MarylandSafe.org show this, and we ask you to say no until we know.
Thank you very much. Is Rick Meyer here? Rick Meyer? Okay, thank you all very much. We'll call up the next panel. Forgive me, Daniel Wacklawa, Janice Smith, Harriet Quinn, Theodora Scarrato, Roderick Callaway, Manuel Martinez Salgado, Shruti Bhatnagar, and Nancy Wilkinson. Please go ahead and start if you're sitting. Thank you.
Hello. I attest and affirm that the following statements are true and accurate. My name is Janice Smith, and I've been a Maryland resident for 20 years. States reps must, by law, stand against the planned 5G and close proximity antenna rollout per your oath of office and the stated congressional intent of the Communications Act of 1934 and the lack of any preemption of health effects and of any operations of wireless facilities in the 1996 Telecommunications Act and the Public Health Service Amendment Act of October 1968 requiring the public's protection from the radiation emissions of electronic products. State officials are required by law and Constitution to provide safety to their constituents. Some tens of thousands of studies of radiofrequency microwave radiation have been performed, a fuller body of evidence than exists for lead, smoking, and pesticides. The pulse modulation of the microwave radiation deployed by close proximity antennas makes it extremely dangerous, as does its constant and permanent duration, and as does the addition of this irradiation to all other extant radiation sources. Because 5G includes various new types of radiation, the federal courts have recently ruled that new antennas must go through a National Environmental Policy Act. This was 2 cases that were before the 4th Circuit, D.C. Until that occurs, you must provide us a moratorium on 5G and all close proximity antennas. I presented no matter of mere concern, but solely facts of substance, fact, and law. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Shruti Bhatnagar, and I am the chair of Sierra Club Montgomery County Group. Thank you all for this opportunity to speak this evening. Each legislative session, on behalf of our over 70,000 members and supporters in Maryland, the Sierra Club selects 3 to 5 priority bills and also submits testimony on dozens of others. Last session, our priorities included the Clean Energy Jobs Act and a statewide ban on foam food packaging. Both are now law thanks in large part to the leadership of 2 delegation members, Senators Feldman and Kagan. For the 2020 session, a key priority bill will be sponsored by Chairman Barway to retire Maryland's 6 coal plants by 2025 and allocate millions of dollars to support a transition for affected workers and communities. These coal plants continue to pollute our air and waters, harming public health and gravely damaging our climate. Just yesterday, the Sierra Club announced the result of a poll which found overwhelming bipartisan support among Marylanders for closing these plants and for a just transition program. We will be deciding on our other 2020 priorities in the next few weeks. Reimagining and transforming our transportation sector is an ongoing focus of Sierra Club statewide and in Montgomery County. We continue to strongly oppose Governor Hogan's anti-environmental proposal to expand the Capital Beltway and I-270. More lanes inevitably mean more vehicles and more greenhouse gas emissions. We support a substantial expansion of public transit in and near the I-270 corridor. In this regard, we condemn MDOT's action in removing the Corridor Cities Transitway, CCT, from the CIP. This flies in the face of smart growth and our climate goals and will undermine economic development and housing. MARC expansion needs to be a priority, which requires real and serious planning efforts. MDOT, however, seems to be ignoring MARC. The county, with state support, must move forward with bus rapid transit on 355. At the same time, Maryland must move forward aggressively with electric vehicles. One of the first steps should be efforts to convert to electric school buses and electric public transit buses. We also support Delegate Corman's efforts to better allow for electric charging stations in multi-family housing. In closing, I know many of you have supported Sierra Club and its priorities. We want to thank Senator Kagan, Chairman Barway, Senator Feldman, Delegates Corman, Solomon, Stewart, and Charkoudian, and we really look forward to working closely with all of you for another productive session for the environment. Thank you for your time today.
I'm Nancy Wilkinson with the Montgomery County Faith Alliance for Climate Solutions, the climate mobilization group of Montgomery County, and also the Environmental Justice Committee of the Cedar Lane Unitarian Universalist Church. Thank you so much for letting us present our ideas. I plead for your support of the community choice energy legislation presented by Delegate Laura Charkoudian. It seems to me that it should be a very high priority, particularly because of our climate crisis that we're facing. It will allow Montgomery County, as well as all Maryland communities, the power to pursue cleaner, cheaper electricity for their residences and businesses. There are 3 reasons for my support and our request for your support for this important legislation. The first, as I've mentioned, is climate change, and the goal that we have in Montgomery County, particularly to have through our climate emergency resolution, the reduction of greenhouse gases to 100% by the year 2035. So statewide community actions like this are absolutely critical for us to be able to move towards many more renewable uses of renewable energy, such as solar and wind. Secondly, since it's a statewide application, this will enable all sizes and types of communities, including towns, cities, villages, counties, to set individually their own criteria and plan for review, detail the process and consequences of aggregation, and negotiate for more renewables and potentially lower rates. Thirdly, the state of Maryland must place the public health of its citizens foremost. In the 9 states that have chosen to do CCE, also known as community choice aggregation, the results have been very encouraging. Aggressive state legislation of this type is necessary to meet the obligations of the county to dramatically reduce greenhouse gases. Participation of residents and businesses is completely voluntary, and opting out is possible for all. Ownership of the power plants and grid will remain in the hands of the utilities, and all of the details of each community plan must be filed with the Public Services Commission for final review. Thank you very much, and I hope this will be a top legislative priority for you all.
Thank you very much. I want to thank the panel. Again, I want to call up Daniel Waklawiwi, Harriet Quinn, Theodora Sirocco, Roderick Calloway, and Manuel Salgado. Okay, so they're not here. We got it. We got it. Okay, so we'll call up the next panel. Liz Feldman, Diana Jones, Lily Hawkins, Michelle Kurtz, Doris Nguyen, and Patricia Tice, and Kathleen Michaels and Matt Losak. And if you want to, however order you want to start. Just be sure to turn on your mic and say your name when you're testifying. Thank you very much.
Hello.
Go ahead.
I'm pleased to be here tonight. My name is Lily Hawkins from Food and Water Watch and Food and Water Action. I'm also here to speak about community choice energy. Thank you to Nancy Wilkinson for the overview. As she said, CCE makes it allowable for a local government to set up an entity that buys energy on behalf of all its residents and businesses. This entity is kind of like a buying club and can determine the source of energy and also negotiate for lower rates. There are already 9 states that allow community choice energy, or aggregation as it's also known. It was originally conceived of as a way to lower rates, but is now being used as a way to help communities transition more rapidly to clean energy. Both parts of that are important. We need to move quickly off of fossil fuels and onto clean renewable energy, but we also need to ensure that the transition happens in a way that is fair and equitable and doesn't place an undue burden on folks who may already be struggling. Community choice energy will provide Maryland with energy that is both clean and affordable because it allows local governments to negotiate both better rates and cleaner power because they're purchasing energy for the whole community. CCE will provide local control and local choice because the details of a CCA are determined by the local democratically elected government that establishes it. This gives people local control over their electricity, that the generation portfolio reflects the values of the community. While no one would be able to purchase less renewable energy than the state's renewable portfolio standard requires, localities would be free to focus on lower rates or a faster transition to renewable energy, or both. Additionally, the legislation doesn't require any county or municipality to form a CCA, and it doesn't tell anyone what their aggregator should look like. It also provides for individual choice because individuals can still opt out of the CCA and continue with a third-party supplier or the existing utility if that's their preferences. Anyone can opt out. And down the road, we believe that CCE can lead to locally created jobs, be that installing solar or wind power, because an aggregator will be allowed to own and build the means of energy generation. Additionally, an aggregator could choose to pair its electric purchases with other programs, such as energy retrofits, that could help help customers save money and create good local jobs that can't be sent offshore. And I believe that the Montgomery County Delegation in particular should prioritize this legislation. There's a tremendous amount of excitement in Montgomery County around this issue. And Montgomery County has almost 20% of the households in Maryland. If we establish a clean energy CCE here, we can make a huge impact on moving Maryland towards green energy and save money while doing it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next. Someone, please. No problem.
Hello. Thank you. I am Dr. Kathleen Michaels, a neuroscientist and parent, speaking as board member of One Montgomery Green and Safe Healthy Playing Fields. And it is no secret the world is drowning in plastic and its related toxins. No amount of recycling can or will solve the problem. The answer to an overflowing bathtub is to turn off the tap, then to mop up. To this end, we support statewide bans on single-use plastic bags and packaging. We also support an end to subsidies for plastic synthetic turf, sports fields, and playgrounds, and to regulate their disposal so that hundreds of tons of disintegrating plastic and tire crumb per field don't end up dumped in woodlands, wetlands, and roadsides. In case you haven't heard the recent news, plastics, including plastic carpeting, are manufactured with the PFAS, perfluorinated class of non-stick chemicals that now pollute our drinking water and soils and are hazardous to health in minute amounts. Tire waste playgrounds are being closed due to lead in the rubber. It is our duty to the next generation to clean up the toxic mess we have left them, not to pile more on it. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Liz Feldman, a member of the Glen Echo Heights Mobilization. We're an advocacy organization in Bethesda, and our group is testifying this evening to support the passage of legislation allowing for community choice energy in 2020. We're a group of concerned citizens committed to making change happen at the city, county, state, and federal level, including taking steps at the local level to reduce impacts on our community from global climate change. Our members are directly and meaningfully involved in efforts to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in our community through initiatives such as the Sierra Club's supported 100% Clean Energy School Districts campaign. We're involved in this campaign in solidarity with the Montgomery County Council. We understand that we are facing a climate emergency as recognized by the Council's approval of the Emergency Climate Mobilization Resolution. MCPS is collaborating with Montgomery County on this resolution, and we so strongly support that collaboration since MCPS is one of the largest energy consumers in the county, spending about $35 million per year on electricity, only 1/3 of which currently comes from renewable sources. To meet the goals of that resolution, we would like to see MCPS achieve 100% clean energy. MCPS has documented success in reducing energy use per square foot and avoiding greenhouse gas emissions. In 2017, 64% of MCPS's greenhouse gas emissions were from electricity, and 50% of its greenhouse gas reduction came from purchase of renewable energy certificates. Nonetheless, MCPS recognizes that it must take further actions to continue to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, maximize energy efficiency, promote use of renewable energy, and protect the health of students and employees. We understand and appreciate that funding constraints and competing priorities for limited resources are the most significant obstacles to realizing these goals. The primary reason for MCPS's current decision to limit energy to clean energy to 33% is concern about its ability to obtain favorable energy rates from clean sources. Community choice energy is a solution to these concerns. Its passage would allow Montgomery County to purchase renewable energy at rates 2 to 5% lower than traditional sources of energy, enabling MCPS to switch to 100% clean energy without having to redirect its limited resources. We ask the Montgomery County Delegation to prioritize passage of the legislation enabling community choice energy in 2020. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next.
Good evening. I am Diana Yance, representing the Tacoma Park Mobilization Environment Committee. TPMEC is also a member of the Climate Coalition, a coalition of climate groups across the state. TPMEC strongly urges you to co-sponsor, and in the Senate to sponsor, Lorik Sharkoudian's proposed Community Choice Energy Act. That act will build on last year's Clean Energy Jobs Act by creating a mechanism for communities to rapidly transition to renewable energy. Community choice energy will allow Montgomery County, and indeed all counties across Maryland if they so choose, to rapidly transform energy use to renewable power and the county to address the climate emergency we face and achieve the county's greenhouse gas reduction goal of 80% by 2027. It does this by allowing local governments to negotiate on behalf of their communities in setting rates and determining the source of the energy. CCE allows communities to rapidly transition to renewable sources because customers are automatically enrolled, although they do have an option to opt out what the local government has negotiated. CC is one of the most important tools to enable us to rapidly and effectively address climate change. Just as Kerwin will be a game changer in education, CCE is a game changer in energy because it can change the default electricity option to clean, renewable energy. The biggest barrier consumers currently face in changing to clean energy is that it's difficult, confusing, and time-consuming to make the switch. Montgomery County has Montgomery County's Citizen Expert Panel on Energy has already identified CCE as being a key and a critical component in having the county reach its goal of reducing its greenhouse gas emissions. Tacoma Park also has a climate emergency resolution, and the expert report to Tacoma Park relies in large part on the legislation passing CCE. There is no other policy or technology that would be as effective as CCE to respond to the climate emergency. Not only does CCE advance the goal of reducing greenhouse gas emissions, but local governments will be able to negotiate competitive rates. By aggregating a large number of consumers, local governments can purchase electricity at significantly below the standard offered service rate, which is the default rate charged by Maryland utilities. Among other things.
Thank you very much. We have your written testimony, I believe, so thank you. Next.
Good evening. My name is Michelle Kurtz. I live in Tacoma Park, and I'm the mother of 2 teenagers. I have never considered myself an environmental activist, but like so many of us, in recent years, I have become increasingly concerned about climate change and wondering what I can do to address it. In September, I helped organize the Climate Emergency Town Hall, focused on Montgomery County's commitment to reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 80% by 2027. It was standing room only, and a lot of the people there were just like me, new to this, and wanting to do something locally to reverse the path the world is on. Here in Maryland, and especially in Montgomery County, there is strong and growing support for moving to clean energy. Community choice energy would allow communities that choose to rapidly make that shift away from fossil fuels and toward renewables. CCE is the linchpin to local communities' efforts to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in a meaningful way. There are other compelling reasons to support it as well, and we've heard many of them tonight. This legislation empowers communities to make choices based on their residents' values, priorities, and needs. And those who don't like it can opt out. CCE puts the power in the hands of the people, quite literally. Thank you for representing Montgomery County. Please support the CCE legislation and help us get quickly on the road toward a more sustainable future. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Doris Nguyen from Bethesda. You've already heard from others as to why community choice energy is important. I'm here today to make a more personal appeal. I think it is important to put this bill in broader context as to what we do in Maryland and the leadership we do or do not exert has widespread consequences. Many of us will be able to protect ourselves from the worst impacts of climate change. We have the great advantages of wealth and privilege. But that is not true of many of the places from which we and our neighbors have come. And those places are at the greatest risk from our unfettered use of carbon-emitting energy. The nations that disproportionately emit the most carbon must do the most to prevent catastrophe. My parents came from Vietnam, and I still have family there. The Mekong Delta, the source of sustenance for millions of people, is already experiencing dramatic saltwater incursions that risk the lives and livelihoods of 12 million people. People who have nowhere to go, people with no other source of food. These are people like us, people like me. And while I am focusing on people with whom I share a common ancestry, millions and millions of people around the world are facing or will soon face these devastating effects. Please do not turn your backs and avert your eyes. This is the existential threat to humanity. Here in Maryland and in the U.S., we can build seawalls, we can move inland, raise our homes, collect insurance. Most of humanity, however, does not have that privilege. Please help us take responsibility for our greenhouse gas emissions by passing the CCE. I know that usually we have to go to the committees that are on, that have something to do with this, but what I'd like to ask is that you go beyond your normal committee assignments and look and see and be heroes for us and look and see how you can influence the discussion by talking to other lawmakers rather than just kind of sticking to your committees. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I'm the last one. Am I on?
You're on. You're
Okay.
you're live. You're on TV.
Dear Montgomery County Delegation, my name's Patricia Tice. I'm speaking to you today, although I'm a member of the Faith Alliance for Climate Solutions in Montgomery County. I'm speaking today as my own self. I'm urging you to prioritize the legislation authorizing community choice energy. I'm going to skip over a lot of what would be repetitive of what my colleagues have said. And I want to say two things. We all recognize that solving the climate crisis is important, but it's time now to move it up to urgent. If we don't understand that we have got to remove all fossil fuels from our economy within the next 10 to 20 to 30 years, the planet is doomed. It's already projected that sea level could rise at least 6 feet. And it's even if we take all fossil fuels out of the environment today, it would still keep rising because the effects are going to last for a very long time. Anyway, so climate choice energy is an important tool to allow local governments like Montgomery County to lower electric rates and transition rapidly to clean renewable energy without having to wait for change at the state or federal level. CCE reminds me of rural electric cooperatives, the utilities that led the electrification and modernization of rural America, which were founded on the principle of democratic member control. I'll skip to the end. More importantly, CCE will enable members of our underserved communities to have access to clean, competitively priced renewable energy without having to put solar panels on their roofs or other adaptations. I urge you to prioritize the passage of this important legislation.
Great, thank you. Last call for Matt Lozak. Matt? Okay, next panel, Peter Henry, Vicky Brogagni, Amy Byrne, Mark Eckstein, Lionel Sussman, Paul Geller, Terrell North, and Diana Conway. Terrell, kick us off. Sorry, Terrell, kick us off.
But use the mic.
Thank you for all the time that you're giving to the community. We really appreciate it. So I'm Terrell North, Executive Director of the Collaboration Council for Children, Youth, and Families here in Montgomery County. We're the local management board for Montgomery County, one of 24 across the state. The Collaboration Council may be best known through our Excel Beyond the Bell program, our after-school program at 14 schools here in the county, soon to be 18 this January. But we also fund programs for disconnected youth between the ages of 16 and 24, adjudicated youth and early care program serving youth from age to 3. So you've heard many people, and you will hear many more talking about the Kerwin, and so I want to dig a little bit deeper into one element of that, and that is the 0 to 5 education system that we need to create here in the state, but in Montgomery County. Right now, the Collaboration Council funds a large Birth to 3 program, one of 4 in the county that service primarily mothers, expecting mothers, and then mothers of young children, again, ages birth to 2. We are funded primarily through a braiding of funding from the state, about $1.5 million, and then another $4 million from the federal government and the county government and private dollars. But fully 25% of our programs are funded by all of you. So many program requirements place limitations on the populations that can be served with their early care and childhood education programs. Our largest program, Healthy Families Montgomery, only serves low-income and uninsured first-time mothers in particular. But that creates a hole in the system, and the biggest hole here in Montgomery County right now is with African-American mothers, regardless of their income. So Montgomery County has the most births in Maryland, ranking second most has the most births in Maryland annually, ranking second in the number of preterm births, 1,142 in 2017, and third in the number of infant deaths, approximately 64 infant deaths in 2017. According to the Maryland Department of Health, Montgomery County had the most preterm births and infant deaths, had more preterm births and infant deaths than 8 of the 10 programs that are currently receiving funding through the state's Maternal, Infant, and Early Childhood Home Visiting Program, or MICV. Eligibility for MICV is determined by a statewide needs assessment, so our first ask of you is to ensure that the needs assessment that will occur over the course of the next year, ending in October 2020, that we're accounted for properly. Right now, our 64 deaths are not considered as large a percentage of our population as 1 death in Dorchester County. But demographic changes are suggesting that we will qualify in 2020, but we are asking for your support in ensuring that you're providing oversight in that process so that it happens. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you mind turning off your mic, and let's just keep moving to your right.
Yeah, hi. I'm Pete Henry. I am owner of Barking Mad with my wife, which I've seen a number of you up at, Cafe up in Germantown, and Watkins Mill Town Center and Germantown Town Center. I'm here today to speak to you about a pending bill, which is commonly referred to as just evictions, who's coming back this year. Housing is important. We all know that. People want a safe, healthy, and happy place to live in harmony with their neighbors. Our task as landlords is to provide that safe, clean, happy place for them and their families. We do this by having each of the new members of the community sign an agreement where they agree to abide by certain rules and fit within the community. We put that in a contract we define as a lease. Okay? It's a defined period of time, usually 1 to 2 years. The vast majority of the residents follow the rules. They want to live in a nice place. But there's always a very, very small group that, after agreeing to abide by these rules, become renegades. And these become the big bullies of the neighborhood. We spend so much of our time with these very small big bullies. What kind of things do the big bullies in the neighborhood do? The noise from late night parties, yelling at each other. When we ask them, they say, it wasn't that loud. And then they really tell us, prove it. Pot smokers. We don't mind if they want to chew. It's, they buy those little pills. It's up to them. But smoking, no, it ruins the community. They say it wasn't us. Prove it. Racial slurs. We've had 3 of these recently. There's one on YouTube right now that has like 2,800 hits. Their answer is freedom of speech. Dog poop. I know it sounds like a ridiculous thing, but if you live in an apartment building and you come out, it's cold outside. Certain people don't want to walk their dogs outside. Their answer is, it wasn't my dog. Prove it. We had a massage business that walked in. So the door was propped open every night. Men were coming in. The answer was, it's eBay. They're picking up stuff every hour on the hour. Their neighbors were going crazy. We had a dealer Their answer was, it was my friend stopping by. Identity fraud, which became Party Central. All of these things, you know, it sounds like that We Are Farmers, dun, 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 dun. It really did happen. It's unbelievable what goes on. What have I got? 29 seconds. Perfect. How do you deal with these bullies? Two options. So you can evict them, which takes 9 months, or under this bill you can't get them out at all. Or two, you can just not renew them. It's not news to them that they're not going to be renewed. We've talked to them 5 or 6 times. We've sent them notifications. Out of the 900 approvals we did this lease, we've only evicted 4 people, 3 of which were identity thefts. This is not an issue that needs to be addressed. Thank you.
Mind turning off your mic? Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Vicki Vergani, and I'm here to talk to you about a brand new thing called affordable home ownership. Not affordable housing, that's rental. Affordable home ownership. And affordable home ownership in Montgomery County is spelled C-O-N-D-O, condominium. Unfortunately, many of our condominiums are financially unstable. And it has a lot to do with a lack of public policy. And I have to tell you how disappointed I am in this delegation. Last year, there were 63 bills introduced in the Senate and the House to assist condominiums and HOAs. Nothing was passed that did anything to support their sustainability. Yet this is 15% of the housing in Montgomery County. It is where the veterans live, the disabled live, the single heads of households, the minorities, and those aging in place. And folks, it is so serious that Montgomery County has now formed a community called Distressed Communities Task Force. We have many communities that are on the verge of insolvency. On the average, they have 130 families in each one of these communities. Can you imagine what's going to happen when we have 400 people at a time on the street because they can't pay their water sewer bill? It is going to happen. It happened in Prince George's County, Lind Hill condominiums. It's going to happen here. We have many of them that are on the verge. Montgomery County has been investing in these communities. We need to get serious about this. Instead of smattering your efforts, I'm asking you to choose 3 key condominium issues, and the delegation get behind them. You have 3 of the 4 counties with the most condominiums have leadership positions, including JPR, which is Baltimore County, which is the 3rd largest number of condos in the state, our own Environment and Transportation, which a Montgomery County senator heads, and a county delegate heads, as well as Prince George's County heads the real property, housing and real property. We have leadership, and I'd like to see some of you take that leadership and run with it. We desperately need a champion. This is 139,000 people are counting on you. 15% of the population of Montgomery County. If you represent anybody in Gaithersburg, Germantown, Rockville, or Silver Spring, they're in your territory, and you need to take note. So I am begging you this year, choose only 3 things to go after, and go after them with your heart and soul. We desperately need you. I thank you.
Would you mind turning off your mic? Thank you. Diana?
Good evening. My name is Diana Conway. I'm here as president of the Women's Democratic Club of Montgomery County with a lot of opinionated people, so I'm going to go quickly. In the club, excuse me. We focus on issues that disproportionately affect women and their families, which aligns very nicely with the new county focus on racial and social equity. First, affordable housing. We support the Just Cause bill that requires a just cause be stated in the notice to vacate, limit the causes of eviction to reasonable circumstances, and that when eviction is reasonable, increase the required number of days' notice for households with children. Second, on aging. Among our aging population, women increasingly outnumber the men. We support legislation to protect their economic security for both working and retired, such as protecting affordable rentals, non-discrimination for aging employees, and building ways for older adults to engage in community service, including, in particular, multi-generational engagement. Third, on criminal justice, there is no standalone pre-release center for incarcerated women in the entire state of Maryland. You know there are incarcerated women in the state of Maryland. There are 7 such centers for men. Such unequal treatment could violate the Equal Protection Clause and the Maryland Equal Rights Act. Pre-release is critical to successful reentry, and most of these women are single heads of household. Lord knows it's hard enough even when everything does go right, so please give these women a decent pre-release center and get a fair fiscal note on the possibility and the cost of rehabbing existing vacant property. Fourth is the environment. There are currently no laws or regulations on the disposal of artificial or synthetic turf fields. So, for example, the Richard Montgomery High School field sits in Speaker Jones' home district of Baltimore County beside the Bird River legally. These fields, 250 tons of toxic plastic waste with 40,000 shredded waste tires contain neurotoxins like lead and mercury, 52 human carcinogens, endocrine disruptors, flame retardants, and many things I cannot pronounce. As a social justice issue, many lower income and minority communities are already freighted with toxic exposure from all kinds of sources. As the number of fields increases, so does the need to address this toxic disposal challenge and the risk it presents to the health and air and water of Maryland families. We ask you to support transparent disposal chain of custody documentation requirement. On gun violence is the second leading cause of death among American children and teens. American women are 16 times more likely to be shot and killed with a gun than women in other high-income countries. Maryland has good handgun laws. Please close the long gun loopholes. On education, I think you've heard that we are overcrowded and underfunded. WDC supports the Blueprint for Maryland's Future and the Build to Learn Act. On health, maternal death rates are rising in the U.S. and in Maryland, in particular for women of color. To address the long documented disparities in medical outcomes based on race and other factors, WDC supports the implicit bias training requirements. And for working families,
Diana, thank you.
We ask that you pay attention to medical debt.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would you mind turning off your mic as well, please? Thank you.
Do I have to?
Good evening. My name is Amy Byrne, and I am here representing MHP, the largest nonprofit affordable housing developer in Montgomery County. We proudly serve more than 1,700 families in Montgomery County and several dozen more in Prince George's County. MHP is primarily known for preserving and creating affordable housing, but it does much more than that. We provide before and after school programs to children, activities for teens, and educational workshops for adults across our properties. In addition, we work directly with various neighborhoods throughout the county to address quality of life issues that are holding our communities back from reaching their full potential. Our top priority for upcoming legislative session is passage of legislation to create a dedicated source of funding for the Community Development Fund. The legislature established the fund in 2018. However, it was left unfunded. During the 2019 session, legislation to create a permanent funding source made it out of the House, but it did not make it out of the Senate before the end of the session. This funding would provide critical support to community development initiatives across the state, including affordable housing, neighborhood and community revitalization, housing and financial counseling, small business development, and more. With a well-resourced community development fund, organizations like ours would be able to produce more affordable housing, provide resident leadership training to build human and social capital within struggling neighborhoods, and offer technical assistance and resources to small businesses being impacted by the Purple Line construction. We are grateful for your past support, and we hope you will help us get this bill over the finish line in 2020. Aside from the Community Development Fund, we would like to thank you for the $27 million you appropriated last year to the Rental Housing Works program. This program provides critical gap financing for affordable housing projects. Unfortunately, $12 million in Rental Housing Works funds are still being withheld by the governor due to the budget dispute concerning the legislature's fenced-off priorities. Many projects are reliant on the availability of these funds and will be delayed if the funding is not released. We urge you to resolve this impasse before July 1st so that these funds are not permanently lost, and also provide level funding for the program in the upcoming budget. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Paul Geller. I'm a community guy from down the road here.
We've been talking about a lot of things tonight, and one of the things that really stood out to me was the climate emergency. And right now there's a bill that was proposed last year, and it's coming up again about carbon credits. I can't urge you enough to take this bill seriously and try to push it through this session. And I'll tell you why. As people were talking, I was thinking that right now in MCPS, we only have 17 schools that have solar panels on top of them. That's it, 17. Now, I wasn't going to talk about this tonight, but imagine if we could put solar panels on top of every building. Now, I've been to a school, Melissa Mckenna and I have been there, Discovery Elementary School in Arlington, Virginia. There they have a $1.5 million solar panel system that's paying for all the energy usage in that building, and it'll be paid off in roughly 7 years. Now imagine if we took that $35 million we're throwing down the sewer every year with energy costs, and we just had solar. It's going to take a huge lift, but then again, that $350 million from carbon credits would go a long way to doing that. So I salute you for that, and I will do everything I can, not as much as she can, but as much as I can to help you pass that. Thank you. I'm really here tonight to talk to you about casino gambling. We need to just make this very, very simple. We need to fund part of Kerwin, and while you've got $350 million, I'd like to give you $330 million. And that is, if we just take 50% of the table game revenue and 50% of the video lottery terminal revenue, that's $330 million every year. It was promised to us that this would go for the primary purpose of funding education. Right now, 15% of table games revenues goes to the Education Trust Fund, and only 39.75% of video lottery terminal money does. Please help change that 50-50 all the way. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I want to thank this panel. I just again want to call Mark Eckstein and Lionel Sussman. Okay. The next panel will be Michael DeLong, Michael Knappen, Barbara Naval, Cecilia Plant, Laura Irwin, Stephen Mandel, Catherine Richards, and Lisa Cohen. Michael, why don't you kick it off, okay?
Good evening, members of the delegation. My name is Michael DeLong. I'm the president of the Montgomery County Young Democrats. We're an organization of Democrats ages 14 to 35. We work to ensure freedom and economic opportunity for all and to try and make Montgomery County and Maryland a better place to live. We appreciate all your hard work, and we just wanted to go through some quick priorities for the upcoming session and encourage you to plan and invest in our future. Education is going to be a major focus, as many other people have said. We support the Kerwin Commission recommendations for increased funding for schools, especially additional aid for pre-kindergarten and for schools with many children living in poverty. Montgomery County has a lot of wealthy areas, and that's kind of a stereotype, but it also has a lot of people who are middle and working class, and we hope you will keep them in mind. Obviously, all of these reforms are going to cost a lot of money. We hope you will look for places to find it and ensure that the 1% and other very well-off people, including country clubs, pay their fair share. Housing and renters' rights are also very important. Housing security is essential for upward social mobility and ensuring everyone has a roof over their head. Delegate Wilkins' Just Cause Eviction Bill is great, and we hope it will be reintroduced. It supports housing stability, and we hope it will be passed. Also, other possible reforms include doing something about the many fees that are hidden in contracts with renters, and some landlords use loopholes contained in leases as justification to not refund security deposits. Most landlords are good and want to do right, but some are not, and this needs to be corrected. Other priorities, preventing gun violence sadly continues to be absolutely essential. We hope that the loophole where we don't have background checks on private sales of rifles and shotguns will be closed. Legalizing and taxing marijuana will not only benefit the economy, it will also be a way we can start redressing the war on drugs, which disproportionately impacts young people and people of color. And once marijuana is legalized, past records should automatically be expunged, so most people with records don't face barriers to jobs, housing, and education. We also hope that the SAFE/Trust Act will be brought back and passed. We should welcome immigrants and protect undocumented immigrants from unjust deportation. We are a nation of immigrants, and frankly, it's kind of a bit of a disgrace, given this xenophobic administration, that Maryland hasn't stood up for them more in recent years. The legislature, we also hope that you will require transparency and accountability when there are accusations of police misconduct. And we also urge you to support laws that support our financial security, tax-free savings accounts for first-time home buyers, and to help people with student loan debt. Far too many people struggle with this, and it's essential that this burden be lifted from them so that they can contribute to the economy. Finally, environmental protection measures to reduce climate change, especially since the eastern part of Maryland is especially vulnerable. This is something that we will have to live with, my generation especially, and we need to step up. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Next.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Laura Irwin, and I am the chair of the Montgomery County Community Action Board, the county's anti-poverty group and governing body for the county's federal Head Start and CSBG grants. Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. You have a copy of our full written testimony, so I'm just going to highlight a couple of priorities. As we've heard today, one of our priorities is early care and education. Child care costs in Montgomery County are the highest in the state. Our board strongly supports the Kerwin Commission's recommendation of a mixed delivery system that provides free pre-K for 3- and 4-year-olds, those whose families earn up to 300% of the federal poverty level. We ask that you support to achieve these goals so that we can go ahead and educate our young ones. With that approach in mind, we also ask for your support, and we thank you for your inclusion of special funds to support a 2-gen approach to reducing poverty for the community action agencies across the state. This funding allows our agency to initiate a 2-pilot gen program at our Tacoma East Silver Spring Center. This project will engage families accessing Judy Center programs for young children and other programs. We ask for the state's continuous investment in 2-gen work in the years to come. As we know, the educational attainment of parents goes directly correlated to educational attainment of their children, so we need this supported. We also would like to continue the capacity building for community action agencies, where with the CSBG funding that has flatlined, many agencies, including our own, have been limited in their ability to meet increasing needs in the county. We ask for your support to provide state funding to CAAs so that they can better serve their communities. Our agency this year served 2,200 households in 2018, linking families and individuals to receive their earned income and child tax credits. Especially, we thank you for your support on our VITA program, the Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program. We ask for your continued support in regards to issues of work supports with the Time to Care Act, housing and homelessness issues with the Home Act, and increased funding for affordable housing construction, the issues of food and nutrition, where we watch for proposed federal changes and provide state support for food programs for our children. Lastly, we want to inform you that our Community Action Agency completed our community needs assessments, and we're going to in developing the needs assessment, we collected information and analyses from numerous county agencies, and we hope to get this report to you as soon as possible. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you very much for that concise testimony.
Good evening. My name is Stephen Mandel, and I'm the co-chair of the Critical Issues Forum, Advocacy for Social Justice. Our organization is comprised of 3 synagogues in Montgomery County, Adat Shalom, Kol Shalom, and Temple Beth Ami, comprising about 1,750 members. Since our formation about 4 years ago, we have focused primarily on advocating for effective solutions to food insecurity in Maryland and Montgomery County. And at this point, I'd want to express my appreciation to Delegate Queen, who is the lead sponsor, and Delegate Corman, who is a very active co-sponsor of the Summer SNAP for Children legislation, which I'm happy to say passed the General Assembly last session. We helped develop and draft the Summer SNAP bill, which thankfully was supported by every member of this delegation. And this is truly landmark legislation, the first of its kind in the country. Unfortunately, more needs to be done. About 21% of Maryland households with children are food insecure, and about 13.3% of Montgomery County households with children are food insecure. Thus, we ask you to support 3 critical food insecurity programs next session: First is MMFA, Maryland Meals for Achievement, which for over 20 years has provided free breakfast in the classroom to all children. This is an extremely successful program in encouraging students to eat their breakfasts. The reasons are obvious. The breakfasts are free. It removes the stigma from children who otherwise would rely on free and reduced price meals, and the breakfasts are provided in the classroom after the bell. Last session, the legislature added a modest amount to the budget for MFA, and the budget is now $7.55 million. But there's 300 additional high-poverty schools that are eligible, including 9 schools in Montgomery County. We request an additional $3.9 million to service those. 2 summer SNAP for children. The legislature did great last year, but more needs to be done. I'm happy to say Maryland DHS has now implemented the law, and more than half the counties in Maryland have stated they're interested in participating, but it's still only going to serve relatively few children out of the 210,000 children in Maryland who receive SNAP. So we ask you to increase the budget. Third, we ask you to increase the minimum monthly SNAP benefit. Several years ago, the General Assembly increased the benefit for seniors from $16 to $30, but there are still over 26,000 Maryland low-income households that receive less than $30 a month. For an additional $4.7 million, those benefits can be increased to everybody for $30. Finally, we've expanded the scope of our advocacy efforts this year to include gun violence prevention. Maryland has a firearms access statute, but it needs to be strengthened, so we ask you to do that this term. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mandel. If you wouldn't mind turning off your mic. Thank you.
Hello, I am Catherine Richards from District 19. I'm a volunteer with Moms Demand Action, a nonpartisan gun sense advocacy group. And this year we have one legislative priority. That's passing the bill that we came extremely close to passing last time on closing the long gun loophole. Despite our state's relatively strong gun safety laws, it is still possible here to purchase rifles or shotguns from unlicensed dealers at gun shows or via the internet without undergoing a background check. This allows prohibited individuals, such as persons convicted of violent crimes or those deemed a danger to themselves or others, to have easy access to guns. We support a bill that would close that loophole. It would reduce murder and suicide rates in our state. Rifles and shotguns were used in at least 30 murders in Maryland between 2013 and 2017. And last year, as you all know, a shotgun was used to murder 5 journalists at the Annapolis Capital-Gazette. Now, most gun deaths in Maryland are suicides. There were about 2,500 gun suicides in Maryland in the last 10 years, and especially in rural areas, long guns are commonly used. Our bill would require all long gun transfers to be completed at a registered gun dealership with a background check. There are hundreds of registered dealers in Maryland, and every Marylander lives within 10 miles of one. There would be common sense exemptions for certain transfers, such as within a family, or the transfers of antique guns, and there would be ways to temporarily loan guns, such as at gun raises or hunting outings. The NRA has objected to our bill, saying that background checks are too expensive. Well, I had to get one to teach Sunday school at the Methodist Church in Durwood. None of the teachers complained because we thought that was part of the cost of protecting all our children. And I ask your help in protecting our children and close this loophole. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My wife wanted to make sure I got a background check with my mother-in-law in Kansas, so I'm with you. Go ahead. Next, please.
Hi, I'm Barbara Niveau. I'm the Executive Director of Do the Most Good, a grassroots activist group in Montgomery County. Our primary focus as an organization is to elect Democrats at the local, state, and federal levels and make our democracy work for everyone. With that as a set of objectives, we have a lot of priorities, but time is of the essence. A number of things have been touched on repeatedly, and so what I want to do is focus. We have 6 primary priorities that we're looking at this year. Several of them have been discussed at length, and I just want to make some brief comments on them and fill in with a couple of others. We have provided written testimony that gives our full positions on all of these issues, but our first priority, as has been expressed by many others, is education, and particularly fully funding the Kerwin Commission. Do the Most Good has been involved on this issue since 2017, when we stood up the first local strong schools team in Montgomery County. And we know that the needs are real and that the plan is fabulous. But what we are faced with this year is funding, and so we are supporting the proposal that's been advanced by SEIU, which calls for an added income tax bracket for those earning more than $1 million a year, and combined reporting for corporations and the closing of certain tax credit loopholes that have enabled several large corporations in the county to pay no taxes whatsoever. Closing these loopholes and tightening the reporting, along with this additional tax bracket, has been projected to yield $1.6 billion a year in additional tax revenue, not to mention that it helps to equalize or bring more economic equity to the taxing structure. So we commend that to you to consider as a solution for this. We also, like many others here, are in support of addressing the climate emergency by building on what was started in 2019 with the Clean Energy Jobs Act. We would like to see the burning of trash removed from its Tier 1 status, and we support the Community Choice Energy Act as well. We're specifically interested also in election reform and access to the ballot box. We support public financing of all state and local elections, same-day voting for newly changed party affiliation or registration, expanding vote by mail at a minimum to rebrand absentee voting as voting by mail. People don't understand that. And finally, to support...
Thank you very much. We have your testimony. Thank you.
I know. Ranked choice voting.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. All right. That was good. You got to run under the buzzer. I'm going to count that, all right? Next, please.
Good evening. I'm Mike Knoppen. I'm the president of the LGBTQ Democrats of Montgomery County. My pronouns are he, him, and his. I'm gay. I'm married. I live here in Montgomery County in Silver Spring. I had planned a really grand, extravagant speech, which I hope one day to give to you all, about the priorities my club passed Monday of this week. I'll send copies of that to all of your offices. But on my way here, of course, after a long day of work, it occurred to me what this day is, which, of course, is the Transgender Day of Remembrance. If you're not familiar, this is a day that we take every year, and we hate taking it. We don't want to take it every year. We don't want to take it again, to recall the lives of transgender and non-binary folks and other gender-expansive persons whose lives were taken from them in acts of violence, simply because of who they are. And I hate to tell you, but this is not some foreign experience. This is not something that happens far away in terrible places. This has happened this year 20 miles from where we sit. Zoe Spears, Ashanti Carmen were killed because they're trans. It's not acceptable. We are better than that. That does not reflect our values. So what I would ask you to do is take the power that you have, not to observe a moment of silence, but to speak out, to say things, to act. And you have the power to do that. I'd like to make a few simple recommendations to you. You could pass a transgender panic defense ban. If you're not familiar, a trans panic defense is a disgusting, insidious legal maneuver people use in courts to say, well, because the person was trans, it's an exculpatory fact in my heinous act. You could pass a ban on that. That would prevent people from doing that in court. You could improve funding for the Ending Youth Homelessness Act. Again, I hate to tell you these facts, but 40% of homeless youth are LGBTQ. I assure you that 40% of youth are not LGBTQ, but we are thrown out on the streets in disgustingly disproportionate numbers, and you can change that. You have the power to change that. And finally, I would invite you to join me on December 11 at the Silver Spring Civic Center to hear more about our policy proposals for the year that address public safety, education, and so much more. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your passionate testimony.
Hi, I'm Cecilia Plant, and I am one of the co-chairs of the Maryland Legislative Coalition. We are a coalition of grassroots groups and individuals from all over the state, and we care passionately about state-level legislation. And we have a very large agenda, which is up on our website at mdlegislative.com, and I'm not going to even attempt to go through all of it. So I will hit some high notes. We have to fund Kerwin, obviously. We have to fully fund it. We can't shrink away from that. There's a lot of choices that are coming out of the Fair Funding Coalition that are good choices, and we are standing behind those. For the environment, we want to thank all of you for the Clean Energy Jobs Act last year. It was quite a fight. We have to do a lot more this year, and we have to expand beyond just energy. We have to go into housing. We have to talk about changes to retrofitting buildings. We have to talk about changes to zoning. We have to talk about transportation. So we're talking about clean vehicles. We have to talk about agriculture. So there's sequestration, there's forestation. We have to get out of the bubble of energy, and we have to get into everything else. So it's huge. There's going to be a lot of bills. We support all of them, all of them. We support carbon collection. We support the Healthy Green Amendment. We support CAFOs being banned. We support the ban on chlorpyrifos. So lots to do on the environment this year. I know that Kerwin is huge, but the environment is going to kill us at some point if we don't do something. So I hope you're all open to lots of ideas on that. For health care, we're after the school-based community health centers, the End of Life Act, which we're very excited is coming back, and paid family medical leave. We want to do that this year if we can do it. For gun control, we're right there with the folks with moms. We want to get the long gun loophole closed and ban 3D guns while we're at it. We'd like to get some funding for MTE. They are in desperate, desperate need. And that's pretty important. And we wouldn't mind a monorail from Frederick into Shady Grove either. We also would like to see the creation of an Inspector General position for P3s. And just to end up with social justice, the Trust Act, pretty huge. The reversing the override of the Dream Act veto, the Public Information Act, and we want to stand with our LGBTQ friends, and we want to get an administrative name change, gender change rights going, and we want to ban discrimination in schools. Thank you very much.
Thank you. What is MTE? What's the acronym?
Maryland Transportation Authority. That is
Maryland Transit Administration?
Yes.
Okay,
Sorry.
MTA, Maryland Transit.
MTA.
Got it. Okay, great. Thank you. Just a little confusion up here. Last call for Lisa Cohen. Okay, next panel, Diane Cameron, David Rodich, Delegate Saqib Ali, Samira Hussain, Nathan Feldman, Mary Rooker, Michelle Whitaker, and John Wetmore. Mr. Rodich, why don't you lead us off?
Happy to do so. Good evening, Senator Zucker, Delegate Corman, and members of the delegation. I'm Dave Rodich. I'm the former Executive Director of SEIU Local 500 and proud to serve now as the Chair of the Committee for Montgomery Board of Directors. It's good to be with all of you again. CFM is a coalition of leaders representing a broad cross-section of Montgomery County business, labor, education, civic, and community-based organizations. Our mission is to advocate in Annapolis on issues of importance in Montgomery County and the state. Through our membership, CFM unites the voices of more than 350,000 Montgomery County voters. CFM shapes its state legislative and budget priorities based on our goal of preserving and strengthening Montgomery County as a place to live, work, and learn. I'm here tonight to share with you our top legislative priorities for the upcoming General Assembly. The area of transportation congestion, and the lack of mass transit service to centers of business and education activities hampers the state and county economic growth and hurts the well-being of our residents. We need a comprehensive and multifaceted solution to our transportation challenges, including reinstatement of funding and state support for the Corridor Cities Transitway, increased daytime capacity for MARC rail service on the Brunswick line, supporting studies to establish the economic viability of a monorail system using existing rights-of-way on I-270, and continuing funding of roads and roadway improvements, as well as pedestrian safety programs, passage of enabling legislation for local funding, bus rapid transit projects, and dedicated state support for the regional metro rail system. The area of economic development, I'm going to be very brief and summarize because you've got our written testimony. We obviously want a thriving economy. We want to support investments being made into public safety and health and human services. A strong and educated workforce is essential component of our economy and should be cultivated through substantive investments in apprenticeship and career and technology training programs. Incentives and tax credits would be important to keep us competitive in the jurisdiction. Lastly, in the area of education, Montgomery County Public Schools is the largest school system in Maryland, accounting for 18% of the state's public school population. Additionally, approximately 57,000 Montgomery County students receive free and reduced meals. The rate of poverty among students is exacerbated by a widening achievement gap. You've got our priorities in front of you, and with that, I'll call it an evening.
Thank you. Would you mind turning off your mic?
Absolutely.
John?
Yeah, I'm John Wetmore from Bethesda. Better pedestrian accommodations on state roads are badly needed. To their credit, the State Highway Administration has been responsive to many concerns. For example, speed limits were lowered and crosswalk markings are improved on Bradley Boulevard, where I live. And after a dozen years of lobbying by senior citizens, sidewalks are currently under construction on Norbeck Road near Hampshire Village. However, there are still many missing sidewalks along state roads in Montgomery County. As I mentioned a year ago, there is no sidewalk on either side of 16th Street where it meets George Avenue. There's no sidewalk on the west side of 16th Street from Linsville Road to Spring Street across from the Woodside Purple Line Station. The neighborhood has not received any update on when they can expect those sidewalks to be built. Back on my own street, there is no signalized crossing on Bradley Boulevard for almost a mile between Goldsboro Road and Wilson Lane. Pedestrian travel will be greatly enhanced with crosswalks and pedestrian islands at Bright Drive and Durbin Road, the two streets that connect to the street network east of Whitman High School. Montgomery County is starting work on a pedestrian master plan. It will identify many missing sidewalks and difficult crossings on state roads throughout the county. It will take political will and substantial resources to fix those problems. For example, to build a sidewalk on East-West Highway between Beach Drive and Brookville Road may require a retaining wall, which will not be cheap, but it is an essential link. As the county pedestrian master plan progresses, state government needs to move forward and provide it with financial support and with a supportive policy framework. Thank you for your attention.
Good evening. My name is Diane Cameron, and I'm here tonight on behalf of the TAME Coalition. TAME stands for the Transit Alternatives to the Mid-County Highway Extended. We are a coalition formed 10 years ago, and we have 50 member and partner organizations, including Sierra Club of Montgomery County, Action Committee for Transit, and the Coalition for Smarter Growth, along with faith communities and home and condo associations. We ask you to join with us in opposing the Mid-County Highway Extended And we ask that you ensure that no monies are allocated for this environmentally and community damaging project. By canceling highway projects, you free up funds for needed transit projects. The TAME Coalition asks that you provide full funding for transit for the up-county and mid-county parts of Montgomery County, including Gaithersburg, Germantown, and Clarksburg. Bus Rapid Transit on Maryland 355 is the transit project for the up-county that is now moving forward, and it's under planning study by Montgomery County DOT. And upon completion of study, Montgomery County DOT will identify a single recommended alternative. In addition, the Corridor Cities Transitway and expanded MARC service are other transit projects that are sorely needed in the up-county. To quote from our partner organization, Action Committee for Transit, quote, "Building highways leads to more traffic and more congestion," unquote. This syndrome is called induced demand. And it's a syndrome by which we build highways, more people drive, the highway gets congested, there's a demand for ever more highways and more expansion of highways. Instead of this never-ending cycle, what we need to do is to shift to a people-centric transportation system. And what we mean by people-centric is a transportation system that is based upon transit, walking, cycling, and telecommuting. According to a 2013 study, building the Mid-County Highway would cost $1.6 billion, more than double the estimated cost of bus rapid transit combined with other reasonable transportation improvements. By rejecting funding for highway projects, you will free up the funds and the staff resources for transit projects. Thank you very much.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Saqib Ali. I live in Gaithersburg, and I appreciate your time and attention. And it's nice to still see some old colleagues from back in the day. So, hi guys. Not old colleagues. Digging, right? I'm here today to talk about Maryland business development funds. There is an organization called the Maryland Israel Development Corporation. This is a state, it's a public-private partnership established by the state to promote Israeli companies to do business in Maryland. And I've passed out a handout to you. You should have it. It shows that for the past 2 years at least, Maryland, the state government has been giving over $300,000 a year to this corporation. You know, in principle, I have no problem whatsoever with business development funds for international companies to do business in Maryland. It seems like a good thing, increases our tax revenue base. But what doesn't make sense to me is to target it specifically to this one country, Israel. Try as I might, I looked around, I couldn't find a Maryland Korea Development Corporation, or Maryland India Development Corporation, or Maryland Mexico Development Corporation, or Maryland Palestine Development Corporation. So my question and my plea is, why is this money targeting only one small sector of international companies when it can be targeting all international companies wherever the opportunity may be? And I'm asking you, especially those in the budget committees, to redirect this money to a general fund that doesn't specifically target just companies from one country in a seemingly arbitrary way. Thank you.
Do you mind turning your, thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for holding this forum to give us the opportunity to hear our concerns. My name is Samira Hussein, and I am Palestinian American. I have lived in Maryland since 1982. I work for Montgomery County Public Schools, and 4 of my children, they graduated from MCPS, and 2 graduated from USG. So they're doing a great job, everybody. And I also serve as a volunteer in several ways. I am an immigrant, but actually I'm a refugee. And this issue really I care about a lot. And Saqib just told you about the Maryland Israel Development Corporation. Of the companies that we do deal with, they brought this company, it's called Alta. Alta is the state gives them a tax break. Alta has contract to help build President Trump wall. I don't want my money to go to such companies. I want my money to go to education, to opportunities for children. I am an ESOL student. I was an ESOL student. I benefited a great deal out of that. I want the money goes to pre-K for everyone, not just selective group people. And thank you for your public service.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Nathan Feldman, and as you heard earlier from our old friend Saqib Ali, the Maryland Israel Development Corporation receives hundreds of thousands of dollars in grant money from the state of Maryland. And I'm here to testify that this money and this relationship is not only somewhat strange, as was referenced before, but it is actively harmful. You'll find in one chart that I supplied from the MIDC of their strategic partners, as referenced by Samira, one of their top partners is Elta Systems, an Israeli weapons manufacturer that is headquartered in Annapolis Junction. Now, this company, which has close ties with the MIDC for business development, has also helped supply a prototype to the Donald Trump border wall, among other violations of basic human rights that the company has either engaged in or is in the process of attempting to engage in, including funding the genocidal Burmese military in its genocide against the Burmese Muslim population. Now, to me, it doesn't make very much sense that Maryland would want taxpayer money going to such an entity or to the assistance of such an entity in its activities. You'll find that the city of Tucson, when it found out about Elta's involvement in trying to build the Trump border wall, actually pulled its investments from Elta, and my hope is that we can stop this public-private partnership from the state of Maryland in this particular special way, because attracting businesses to the state of Maryland to assist in building a border wall, I think, goes against the values of our state. It goes against our values as Americans, because we value immigrants, and it goes against our best interests as a welcoming community.
Hi, my name is Michelle Whitaker. I'm the statewide coordinator for Ranked Choice Voting Maryland. Thank you for the opportunity to speak before you this evening. Last year, Ranked Choice Voting Maryland, along with advocates, were here in this room talking to you about the need and the importance of better voting, particularly ranked choice voting. And I want to thank Barbara for saying it very succinctly, ranked choice voting, it's very important. That's the last word that we need to get in on this. But I also wanted to say thank you to the House delegation for last year unanimously supporting HB 624, which was enabling ranked choice voting or approval voting for Montgomery County local elections. This is an important step forward, and we hope that we can move forward bills that will, for the local level as well as at the state level, to improve our elections. Who we elect is a product of how we vote. And when we have narratives around the lesser of two evils or spoilers, we're not working in our self-interest to make sure that we're advancing climate justice issues, that we're moving forward education, that we're moving forward healthcare issues, and we need to make sure that we have a way to vote that truly expresses our preferences. But we can do something about this, and that's why more and more voters and more jurisdictions are turning to ranked choice voting. In 2018, we saw Maine adopt ranked choice voting for statewide elections. They used it for congressional and statewide elections. In 2020, we will have 4 states using ranked choice voting for their primaries. That includes Wyoming, Kansas, Alaska, and Hawaii will all be using it for their primaries. And in 2021, New York City will be using it for their local elections, the largest jurisdiction by far using this, bringing the number of voters using it to over 12.4 million voters across the United States. The good thing is that we here in Maryland, it is possible for us to move this forward, and we can lead the way. And I want to thank Senator Kagan, who has pre-filed legislation that will allow the State Board of Elections to update all of our voting machines to work for new voting methods, including ranked choice voting, which is an important step forward that we need to take. Better voting equipment is essential to better voting and is essential to a more equitable and representative democracy, and we need to make sure that happens. On behalf of the Ranked Choice Voting Maryland Coalition, we look forward to working with all of you to see this session to make sure that we have better voting. And I just want to give a shout out to my daughter London and say hi, and you can now go to bed.
My name is Mary Rooker of Tacoma Park. I present the Green Party position in follow-up to my written remarks in support of ranked choice voting and ensuring that our voting machines can use RCV. I helped to get ranked choice voting for the city of Tacoma Park in 2006, where we have enjoyed it ever since. I have worked for its passage at the state and county levels since 2007, and I served on the Montgomery County Council's Right to Vote Task Force, which recommended RCV to all of you. Third-party voters don't spoil elections. Poor voting methods do. The real culprit is first past the post voting, the non-majority voting system that is a relic of British colonialism since 1789. It has been since improved upon everywhere else, mostly with RCV and easier ballot access for third parties. It's past time we fixed it here. Voters are sick of the spoiler effect. We long ago stopped using the Pony Express for written communications, and we don't even use the typewriters and mimeographs that I grew up with. We've updated everything except our electoral system, the very lifeblood of democracy, now 240 years old. The third parties that are locked out were the first advocates of many great innovations, the abolition of slavery, women's right to vote, Social Security, and more. Imagine if today's Green New Deal was introduced 10 years ago when the Green Party first advocated a stronger version. RCV benefits all voters, including the nearly 1/4 of all Montgomery County registered voters who are unaffiliated. They also are too often ignored and underrepresented. And I want to thank all of you for supporting RCV for Montgomery County this spring. If you would like to love your voting system as much as Tacoma Park voters do, please push even harder for RCV this year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My good friend Senator Kramer has a question.
Thank you for that, Mr. Chairman, and I want to say that it's always a pleasure to see my old friend, former Delegate Sakib Ali, and he's certainly not getting any younger, but good to see you. I appreciate your commentary, and I would just share with you that the small investment that the state makes into its dynamic relationship with the State of Israel has returned dividends in the tens and hundreds of millions of dollars because the state of Maryland, along with many other states in this nation, recognized that as the only democracy in the Middle East, the State of Israel, many years ago, formed a special relationship with Maryland, and in doing so, the amazing technology that has developed in Israel, and it is now one of the leading nations on the planet in technology, this despite the fact that it has been under constant attack and continues to be by its Arab neighbors. Israel is a technological miracle, and the advances in medicine between the University of Maryland system and the State of Israel, as well as the advances in technology through cooperation of Maryland enterprise and that found in Israel, has been significant. It's been dramatic, and again has improved the lives of not just Maryland's residents, but across the globe, because these advances have helped people in every nation. And I would proffer to you the tiny, tiny investment that the state puts into that has brought about an amazing revolution in technology that has brought significant benefit to lots of individuals. So I just wanted to point that out to you. Again, always a pleasure to see you, my friend, and thank you for that, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Kramer, thank you for that very good insight. Vice Chair Lee.
Are there any questions from the legislators? Okay, we will have our next panel now.
Do I get to respond?
Oh.
There's a question? There's no question. There's no question? Okay.
Okay, thank you. Can we have Wesley Brandt, Ed Rich, Michelle Foster, George Gerhardt, Ben Ross, Jason Newringer, Sally Stotz, and Linda Rosendar come up. Please state your name and or the organization you're representing, if you're representing an organization.
Hi, my name is Wesley Brandt, and I am here to ask for your help in fixing Georgia Avenue. I'm 14, and I go to Sligo Middle School. I live in District 18 in Silver Spring, Maryland, and I live on Columbia Boulevard in North Woodside. I would like to thank Representatives Solomon, Shelley, and Carr, and Senator Waldstreicher and others for being supportive of the Georgia Avenue SHA improvements. My house backs to Georgia Avenue, and funding an improvement to the improvements to make it safer for pedestrians to cross Georgia Avenue. Georgia Avenue is the most congested road in Maryland that is not a freeway. In the summer of 2018, in the span of 14 days, 3 pedestrians were killed further north in Eaton. Lots of my friends live on the other side of Georgia Avenue, and those kids' parents don't want them to cross on foot, so they drive them the 2 blocks, which creates more traffic. Georgia Avenue is a very dangerous and scary road to cross. You only get about 15 to 20 seconds if you're lucky to cross the road, and sometimes only 10. I ride my bike to school a lot, which means that I have to cross Georgia Avenue at 7:30 in the morning. Georgia Avenue has no trees alongside it, and there's all sorts of trash next to it. I was 3 years old when the planning of Georgia Avenue started. If you don't start supporting funding of improvements now, I will have spent my whole life in the unsafe and congested area of Georgia Avenue. It doesn't have to be this way. Please support funding soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Wesley.
Good evening. My name is Michelle Foster. I'm here today representing the Friends of Forest Glen and Montgomery Hills. I'm here again tonight to respectfully request that the Montgomery County Delegation ensure that SHA fund the engineering phase for the Georgia Avenue improvements in Montgomery Hills for fiscal year 2020. First, thank you very much to District 18 and 20 Delegation. Without your relentless and ardent support over the past 2 years, this project would surely still be lagging in the bowels of SHA. So my testimony tonight is aimed instead at the rest of the Montgomery County Delegation. While you do not officially represent Montgomery Hills and Forest Glen, my goal is to convince you tonight that you should also be a relentless and ardent supporter of the Georgia Avenue improvements. It is time to fix Georgia Avenue. While the proposed Georgia Avenue improvements have long been on the county's transportation priority list, this year the improvements have been designated as the #1 most important state road project as determined by the Planning Board, the County Executive, and I believe even the County Council. And indeed, it will have widespread benefits to the county as a whole. Here are the top 3 reasons to fix Georgia Avenue. Help small local businesses thrive. Businesses are failing because the current configuration of the road.
Recently, the Woodside Deli, a 70-year-old Montgomery Hills institution, closed. Residents can't walk to patronize the stores, so too often they get in their cars and they just drive somewhere else. Positioned outside of downtown Silver Spring and Wheaton, Montgomery Hills is an affordable location for small local businesses, often women or minority-owned, and we want them to have a commercial center where they can thrive. The businesses support the proposed improvements. Number 2, better leverage our transit investments. Even with exceptional transit proximity, residents can't easily walk to the 2 stations for the Red Line. There will be 2 Purple Line stations soon. Our investment in transit will yield dividends, but only if the residents can walk or bike to the new stations. And number 3, improving the corridor will help facilitate jobs, development, and housing in the entire Silver Spring-Wheaton corridor, one of the most important economic hubs in the county. This area is the gateway to downtown Silver Spring and Wheaton. However, if we are courting prospective businesses to either area, I hope that we blindfold them as we drive them through the corridor. The revised sector plan, which enjoys widespread support, will allow additional housing and economic development, but the sector plan's success hinges on the road developments. I hope the entire Montgomery County delegation will work with SHA to ensure the engineering is completed in 2020 and we can tackle a construction strategy in 2021. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Ed Rich. I'm president of the Greater Farmland Civic Association. I want to thank all of you for being here tonight and for all that you do, and I want to say particular thanks to our District 16 delegation for being here tonight. Again, I'm president of the Greater Farmland Civic Association, which represents over 3,000 residents in the Old Farm, Tilden Woods, Hickory Woods, and Walnut Woods neighborhoods located immediately adjacent to the 12-lane highway that is Interstate 270. Because of our location, the governor's proposed expansion of 270 will have a substantially negative impact, environmental impact on our community, numbering nearly 1,000 homes and an elementary school currently enrolling over 800 students, which is about 120 over capacity, by the way. We have seen the governor touting the benefits of his P3 project while downplaying the environmental impacts of on those who live near the project. We have seen how the state's MDOT pays lip service to our concerns while ridding the project of any alternatives other than the laying down of more concrete and asphalt. We have seen firsthand that building additional lanes leads to more cars, more traffic, and environmental degradation in our neighborhood and our surrounding areas. We listen daily to traffic reports about accidents on 270 and 495 that routinely shut down these highways and wonder how wide these highways will need to become to get around a jackknife tractor trailer or multi-vehicle pileup, not to mention the rubbernecking that occurs in both directions that slows the traffic to a crawl. We've seen the governor's ill-conceived announcement of reconstruction in the American Legion Bridge with no consideration of space for rail or other public transit that could help alleviate traffic between Maryland and the employment centers in Tyson's Corner and Falls Church. It's time for some checks and balances with regard to this and other major projects, and for the legislature to have a seat at the table. For this and many other reasons, we strongly support the reintroduction and enactment of former House Bill 1091, because it would allow the legislature to better protect the interests of Maryland residents like us. We were extremely disappointed that during this year's session, Senator King chose to bottle up the bill in her committee, even though it passed the House with an overwhelming majority. Hopefully the legislature has seen through his actions since the session ended, the governor's true intentions with regard to this project and recognizes the importance of its oversight of the project. We stress the state can and must find a fair, comprehensive approach that makes other modes of transportation more accessible, affordable, reliable, and viable alternatives to the private vehicle. These can include expansion of Metro and MARC, additional light rail, including monorail and bus rapid transit. We thank you for consideration of all that you do and urge you to do right by the people of our community, the many communities along 270 and I-84 and 85, and all Maryland residents. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sally Stoltz, and I've been a Rockville resident.
I did. Oh, sorry. I've been a Rockville resident for 38 years. I wish to thank all of you for your hard work on so many important issues, and an added shout out to those of you who worked so hard to slow down Governor Hogan's mad rush to impose a massive, financially risky, 50-year, $11 billion P3 toll road project. Over the last year, I have visited many of MDOT's public workshops, and when I bring up induced demand, the catch-all name for the phenomenon of traffic and congestion increasing when road capacity is expanded, they try to tell me it's insignificant. But I have read so much research about it. Here is a quote from an article by Eric Jaffe published in City Lab, January 20th, 2016. Quote, when Texas expanded the Katy Freeway in Houston a few years back, the expectation was that making the massive road even wider would relieve traffic. Some $2.8 billion later, the 26-lane interstate laid claim to being the, quote, world's widest freeway. But the drivers who commuted along it every day were no better off. More lanes simply invited more cars, and by 2014, morning and evening travel times had increased by 30% and 55% respectively over 2011. So this summer, I frequently used my Google Maps function to visit the Katy Freeway during morning rush hours and took screenshots of the congestion. You have 2 copies of my screenshots. It is Interstate 10 on these maps. One is an overview showing approximately 25 miles of Interstate 10 west of Houston City Center, all red. The other is a close-up of the congestion. Day after day, I saw all this red, 13 lanes of congestion inbound on the opposite side of the road, all green. Part, but not all of this is due to population growth, but what if they had built a train or monorail instead? I'm hoping this will convince all of you to work together to stop something like this from being unleashed on us. Why should we go through this nightmare of construction, not to mention all the financial and environmental risks, if it just won't work? With population growth, more and better transit will actually get cars off the roads and reduce congestion. Thank you so much.
Good evening. My name is Jason Nuringer, and I'm here today to ask you to support the people of Montgomery County in an issue that has the overwhelming support of the residents. In a county that cannot agree on whether it's sunny outside, the fact that there's an overwhelming support on this issue makes it reckless and arrogant for there not to be action and support from this delegation. I'm talking about support for widening I-270 and I-495. I can sit here and cite to you statistic after statistic explaining how bad our traffic is. I can cite to you how nearly every major and reputable traffic study ranks our region dead last. Think about that. Dead last. Worse than New York, worse than Chicago, worse than LA. All populations multiple times that of our region. However, the frustrated pleas of an average citizen should be enough to convince you. Widening 495 and 270 would have an enormous benefit to our region and county, bringing new opportunities for commercial growth, increased productivity, and best of all, a happy voting electorate. There's a vocal group of naysayers who are opposed to this. They are wrong. It is clear from their argument that they never travel either road, because if they did, they would drop their opposition immediately. They are not opposed to this solution, but any solution. They are more interested in making noise than finding real solutions. I'm just a dad who is fed up. But I speak on behalf of the thousands of dads and moms and husbands and wives who are here begging for a solution to our traffic nightmare. Governor Hogan has offered one, albeit imperfect, but is the most realistic and best opportunity in a generation to fight our traffic nightmare. Which side of the ballot box do you want to be remembered on? The side of congestion and traffic, or someone who finally listened to the people of Montgomery County and worked to find a real solution? Please support widening I-270 and 495 and the people of Montgomery County. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Ben Ross, Chair of the Maryland
Turn your mic off.
Sorry.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Chair of the Maryland Transit Opportunities Coalition. And I wanted to first say a few words, just a few, about the toll lane issue, and not repeat what others are saying, but simply point to a few things we learned this morning at the Planning Board under Casey Anderson's skillful cross-examination of state highway people. First, turns out the governor's ballyhooed announcement about the American Legion Bridge is not a new breakthrough at all. In fact, it's exactly what the State Highway Administration and MDOT have been assuming since the start of the whole project. And Lisa Choplin admitted that on about the fourth round of questions. Second, we learned that the MDOT has calculated what the tolls will be in their financial analysis, but they're not going to tell Park and Planning or the public what the numbers are. They're sort of on the horns of a dilemma, because if they admit how high the tolls are going to be, they will lose public support, but those numbers are what their decision to rule out the ICC alternative is based on, so there's no way that Park and Planning can evaluate that decision without seeing those numbers. So what should we do? Or what are we asking you folks to do? First, we think that there's a need for legislation to restore the collaborative relationship between the state and counties that used to exist in transportation planning in Maryland. The county consent bill for toll lanes we expect to be reintroduced, and we hope you will support it. And then we need to get back to work on the transit plans that will be the real solution to our transportation problem. We think that the core answer for the 270 corridor is all-day service on Mark with a third track with much more frequent trains in rush hour. But this is obviously a big investment that needs serious study, and you have to look at alternatives. So the first step is a careful study that looks at all alternatives for the corridor: Mark third track, monorail, light rail on the same route as monorail, and compare that against the toll lanes. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Linda Rosendorf. I live in Regent Square in Rockville. Not part of my notes, but I have to say thank you all for your patience. I can't believe how late this evening is going and that you're still awake and listening to us. So now I will tell you why I'm here. I'm here this evening to ask you to pass legislation that will prevent Governor Hogan's flawed P3 plan from going forward. It is essential that you all, the Montgomery County Delegation, stand together on transportation issues that affect Montgomery County. Moreover, this is going to be a very interesting legislative year with all the pending changes in leadership. You will need to collaborate with legislators throughout the General Assembly in order to defeat this highly flawed project. This issue is of extreme importance to county residents, but it is not just a local issue or even an issue of transportation policy alone. It is also a threat to the state's fiscal and economic health, and this is something that I ask you to really look into, because this is just a danger to the entire state of Maryland. I applaud those of you who sponsored bills in the last session to halt this proposed P3 plan. You must once again determine which bills are feasible, Kumar, and see that they get passed through both chambers during the 2020 session. We need traffic relief in Montgomery County. As opposed to what this gentleman said, I ride these roads all the time. We have a traffic problem. We need, however, to have options that will really work. The governor's plan does not prevent traffic relief. And so I will end as I begin, urging you to make this a priority and to work together on legislation that will provide real traffic relief. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Gerhardt. I'm here representing the North Woodside Citizens Association. It's a group of about 350 households located right next to Georgia Avenue, south of Snyder's grocery store, which I'm sure a lot of people have probably frequented at some point or another. We who are devoted to this cause of trying to push forward SHA's plan to rebuild Georgia Avenue have adopted Fix Georgia Avenue as our hashtag, because the road that runs from 16th Street to Forest Glen Metro, Georgia Avenue, is truly broken. It has been broken since the 1960s when the Beltway was put through, and it's only gotten worse since then. That section of road, which is about a mile long, sees an accident on average every 3 days. People, both children and adults, are afraid to cross Georgia Avenue. It is so dangerous. There's no median, there's no refuge. The sidewalks are very narrow. They're pockmarked with utility poles that make it non-ADA compliant. There's no buffer at all. And it is basically, you know, there's nobody biking. There's very few people walking. It has become kind of a bit of a wasteland, except for the 70 to 80,000 cars that go up and down that section of Georgia Avenue every day. As a result, the local small businesses are hanging on by their fingertips, and a lot of them are failing. Over the last couple of years, Silver Cycles, Armand's Pizza, Kristen's Bakery, Silver Spring Animal Hospital, and the Woodside Deli have all either closed or moved to other neighborhoods because this neighborhood has become just such a bad place to be in business. But it doesn't have to be this way. Developers have told us that they are willing to reinvest in the area. They are willing to bring the buildings up to snuff, and businesses will move into the area if Georgia Avenue is fixed. And there is a plan for doing that at SHA, and it partners very well with the county's sector plan that is in motion. These things in combination would greatly improve that section of Georgia Avenue. It would tie it in well to the Forest Glen Metro Station, to the two Purple Line stations that are set to open up nearby, by the Capitol Crescent Trail that is going to run 3 blocks away when it is reopened. So there's tremendous opportunity and benefit to fixing Georgia Avenue, and we hope that you will join with the delegates from District 18 and District 20 to push this project forward, to get funding, and to fix and rebuild Georgia Avenue once and for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, panelists. Now we'll turn it over to Vice Chair Al.
I'd like to call up our next panel. We have Brad German, Janet Gallant, Deborah Butler, Mary Gant, Elliot Levine, Ellen Ryan, Becky Batt, and Bonnie Hillsberg.
It's on? All right. Thank you very much for this late hour to hear us all. I'll cut through all the introductory stuff and the things that have been repeated. My name is Brad German, Chair of Citizens Against Beltway Expansion. Our points of view are, I think, pretty well known. Our concerns have not changed because no information has been coming forth from the state that would change them. In fact, the lack of information coming from the Maryland Department of Transportation has exacerbated our concerns, and I think the concerns of a great many other people. Their stubbornness in releasing data on to justify this project is really very troubling and has created quite a stir, especially down at the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission, which earlier today voted unanimously to continue their non-concurrence in the proposals that MDOT has put forward. We understand we're realistic about what can be achieved legislatively, but we nevertheless encourage you to take up again legislation that would improve the transparency of projects of this magnitude, of this depth, and of this potential impact on the state's fiscal health. In particular, we would encourage you to take again HB 1091 that was passed by the House earlier this year, and also to consider adding provisions to ensure that this project and future P3 projects of similar size cannot bypass the legislature for some sort of review and approval, even if it's only funded by debt, that would insist upon the kind of transparency that has been lacking to date, and that would certainly protect taxpayers from any surprise obligations and to support the P3 partnership should the project fall short. We want essentially for you to take the steps necessary to ensure that the state delivers on the promises it is making to deliver a project that relieves congestion instead of one that simply monetizes it for outside investors. We do not want any surprises. If they're going to this trouble, that you heard earlier about the genuine distress of people who are trying to make it home in time for dinner with their children. We don't need to have them surprised by a project they're hoping will work, only to find that they're either stuck having to pay a $30 or $40 toll, or they're still stuck in traffic. There are measures that can be done realistically and thoughtfully that would address these issues in a reasonable way, and also managing the expectation that we do live in a very crowded place. We live in a place of some 3 million people between Montgomery County, Prince George's County, Frederick, and Fairfax. There's going to be traffic. Nevertheless, I will share with you information from our group, and look forward to working with you as this issue evolves. Thank you.
I'm Janet
Your mic,
Gallant.
please, Brad.
I'm Janet Gallant from don'twiden270.org. We have nearly 1,000 members, and we're one of the many groups reaching out to people all over the county, debunking MDOT's simplistic stories and encouraging involvement and activism. Last night, a week ago, my colleagues and I were standing outside in Clarksburg in 23-degree weather, leafleting and talking to people who were heading to MDOT's Upper 270 workshop. You might think these people would be supportive of the governor's plan for congestion relief, but we saw virtually no support, just worry and anger. Anger that the state is rushing ahead with a project that so obviously won't help because the tolls will be too high and there will be no transit. That anger is increasingly widespread and real. The governor's proposal to use high-priced toll lanes as the sole fix for congestion is a bad plan, and we have every reason to believe the bad plan will also be badly executed, putting taxpayers at tremendous fiscal risk also. To see what we're headed for, we have only to look at the business model for the new Virginia I-395 Express toll lanes. Tolls can be as high as $30 for 10 to 12 miles. It can cost $10 for just a fraction of a mile as part of the effort to price enough drivers out of the toll lanes to ensure the toll lanes flow. That's so significant. The free lanes must remain congested or there's no incentive for anyone to pay tolls. The execution of the governor's bad plan goes on out of sight. They don't share information, they don't consult would-be partners. Just today, Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission excoriated MDOT for, among other things, failing to provide data analyses and technical reports on the subjects of determining the level of tolls or ensuring that the contractor provides adequate and well-funded bonds and insurance. MDOT basically says, trust us. The nightmare scenario is that the project goes through as is. We endure years of construction misery only to find that taxpayers are bailing out the builder, tolls are out of reach, congestion's still there, and a for-profit company is in charge of all of it. What we need is fair, effective, multimodal transportation. Slowing the governor's toll lane project, mitigating its harms, stopping it, coming at it from as many angles as we can, from your side, from our side. These have to be top priorities this session if there's ever going to be an opportunity for better solutions. This is urgent. We will support and amplify you and your bills, hearings, public meetings, community outreach, press statements, any and all of it. We need to get this right. Thank you.
Hello, legislators. Hello, D17. I'm Ellen Ryan, a Rockville resident since just after the last time we widened 270. You've heard that no houses will be taken along I-270 due to this plan. No problem, right? Officials, I refer you to this report from spring 2019, in which the State Highway Administration itself calculates what it will wreck or destroy instead. These pages. 12 acres of parks, 8 National Historic properties, 6 acres of floodplains, 48 acres of unique and sensitive areas, 2 acres of wetlands, 3 miles of water, about 280 acres of forest, and between 178 and 234 acres of backyards, playgrounds, and other property. That's what SHA says. You haven't even heard what might be worse. 2 weeks ago, in this room, Pete Ron and other officials addressed you and your colleagues. I don't believe one legislator spoke out in favor of 270 widening or tolling. In fact, many urged reversible lanes and more use of transit. Although 270 is busy all day, as you probably know, it's a rush hour driven road. Reversible lanes make overwhelming sense. Governor Hogan says he has to impose tolls because Maryland has no money. Maryland has no money because he's dropped about $1 trillion in tolls and fees. Whatever, please don't fall for that. Give us a reversible lane or two, the normal way, with bonds, and stop the widening and toll lanes. We don't want them. Thank you.
Good evening. My
Your
name
mic,
is
please.
Isn't it on? Good evening. My name's Elliot Levine, and I want to thank you for being here tonight and for listening. My comments concern the MDOT SHA plan to expand I-495 and 270. More specifically, their lack of transparency and openness with respect to sharing critical and key data and analyses with the public. I'm specifically concerned that, as reported, MDOT's Pete Ron spoke at November 4th transportation hearing, saying that they would not release to the public their key study on the traffic origin and destination data, claiming that the data is proprietary under a software license, but yet they'll make it available to road building developers. Can they legally segregate who is entitled to receive this data that's likely produced using taxpayer funds? I'm particularly concerned with the veracity of the process and the outcome after hearing their quote-unquote advisor speak at an OASIS meeting for MDOT on September 4th, where he labeled that anyone who believes in induced traffic demand is an amateur analyst, and then also stated that 75% of the traffic is pass-through traffic, not commuter-related. Clearly, no one is interested in seeing a highway built for other than the congestion that occurs during rush hours. The consequences of using faulty data are great, as the outcome will mean that after a road building contract is let and a NEPA assessment is performed, the results will likely be undercounted traffic, more road congestion than we now have, and underrepresented financial and environmental impacts which will occur. The only remedy to you at this point would be to sue MDOT at requiring that they redo the analysis with using accurate data this time at great expense and time. I conclude by saying please pay attention to how they generate their conclusions, evaluate their critical assumptions, and lastly, I urge you to make sure that their decisions are based on validated data and characterized honestly.
Good evening, and thank you for still being alert and involved this late at night. I appreciate it. I'm Becky Batt, and I've been a Rockville resident for over 30 years. I'm here tonight because I seriously oppose Governor Hogan's plan to widen 270 in Rockville. Everyone here knows about the dangers of climate change and knows that we have only a brief window of time to make significant positive changes to protect our world for future generations. Governor Hogan's plan calls for adding up to 4 extra lanes to 270 and does not even consider making our existing public transportation, buses, Metro, and MARC, more efficient and commuter-friendly. While the governor's plan might not destroy homes, it will expand 270 so that it's directly next to some local roads, such as Nelson Street, where I live. Adding lanes will destroy what is near the highway, as Ellen said.
Adding lanes will decimate trees and green space that help to protect people from air pollution and noise pollution. Instead of looking to the future and helping provide viable options to commuting by car, the governor's plan is destructive and anachronistic. I ask you, our representatives, to fight the plan to expand 270 and to work with all of us to make public transit meet our needs more effectively. And while we are working on improving our public transportation, it makes sense to have reversible lanes right away. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, panelists. Do we have Deborah Butler here, or Mary Gant, or Bonnie Hillsberg? Okay. Well, thank you, panelists, for your wonderful testimony. We're going to move to the very last panel, and I thank anyone who is still around for being here and wanting to express your legislative priorities. I'm just going to call your name. Is David Odell here? Catherine Steefill, Jennifer Russell, Sam Rager, Harvey Kaplan. Who's here? Oh. Go ahead and state your name, and if you're representing an organization, which organization?
Yes, hello, good evening. Thank you for staying to the very last end. My name is Catherine Stiefel, and I'm here representing the Carter Rock Springs Neighborhood Association noise and pollution to do with the Beltway expansion. Almost everyone else has noted in the last few presentations most of what we would have to say, but also having attended the Parks meeting earlier today, I would say that the transparency is what we need of information. I am expressing on behalf of my neighbors that we'd like to actually halt any expansion of the footprint of the 495 Beltway or the I-270 corridor for managed lanes or any other purpose. You have the testimony in written. It's longer than this, so you'll be able to read that. But basically, the only additional thing to say, perhaps, is that what we have not heard in a long while is removal of some of the truck, semi-trailer traffic and the interstate travel of 95 through our area. And why has that not been discussed as an alternative to move it actually out and around our Beltway and even out around possibly Baltimore? Not building more roads, but actually looking at this in terms of perhaps tolls or some other digital way, such as Way Station or Easy Pass recording of trucks at limited times, or some kind of a toll to that extra traffic, especially at our rush hour times. We ask that you support the sort of halting of the P3 work, as it is destructive, as others have said tonight. But our community notes for looking at health, safety, and welfare priorities, the negative impacts that expanding this on our neighborhood especially will be environmental factors, stormwater management concerns. Our neighborhood is a registered historic place with a Maryland Historic Trust, and this has to do also with sort of negative effects on the mature woodland forest areas, tree canopies, the negative impact on our property values, and the noise increase and added pollution. We also have FHA traffic above us. So if you would please just continue to pay close attention to what the P3 team is producing and the transparency of information to the neighborhoods for their actual input. We'd like to see an end to these queries. We know that the EIS studies have begun. A letter was sent to me at my property. Mine will be directly impacted, as well a couple of other neighborhoods along our route. So thank you for your time. And we also thank Mark Corman, especially for his support, and Sarah Love, who have actually come to our community meetings in defense of this. And testimony that's been already given in communication between us and MDOT is on the community links that you'll find at the end of the written testimony. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kaplan. You are the last individual to speak. All right.
That's what we want. Good. Thank you very much. Harvey Kaplan is my name. I represent the Maryland Military Coalition. So Senator Zucker, Delegate Corman, and members of the Montgomery County Delegation. Some of you know me. Many of you don't. I've testified a number of times in Annapolis, large number over the last 21 years, on various issues in front of various committees. But today, I've been asked to provide to you the legislative goals of the Maryland Military Coalition. We have, in the state of Maryland, about 460,000 veterans, 460. And when you count everybody, and we should count everybody, and that does not count the family members because we support them too. We support the kids, we support the spouses, the surviving spouses, and all the military people on active duty, in the reserve components, deployed, and at home. So retirees and veterans of all categories. 1 in 9 of the veterans in Maryland approximately live in Montgomery County. 1 in 9. It's a good yardstick. That's a lot. We have 13 veterans organizations in the Maryland Military Coalition, and we do focus on all these categories. So I thank you for your patience this evening. I thank everybody who stayed to hear this. And I thank all the people who testified and spoke before, because I learned a tremendous amount about issues I didn't know anything about. And it was illuminating to me, and I've lived here for 37 years. So last three active duty assignments were living in Montgomery County, Maryland. So I spent 27 years on active duty. I'm clearly a veteran. Army, 27 years. I'm a retiree. And I'm a resident of Maryland long-term, and so is my family. All the kids live here, the grandkids live here. It's a good, happy situation. So please, as the time comes and you hear about more of these issues in Annapolis, we will have people there to explain them. That's not my mission tonight. And I thank you very much. I think we're finished.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kaplan. Thank you for your service. Thanks to everyone who spoke tonight. Just a reminder, my colleagues and the audience, we're back December 2nd and December 9th for our local bill hearings. Chair Zucker, anything to close us out with? Great. Thank you. Thank you all.
You both got these. You got, did you now get, yeah. I try to put, yeah. Okay.
Investment.
And then is a lot of your business as the mechanic?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
The repair shop.
Yeah.
99% of my revenues come from there.
This comes from the repair.
Exactly.
This is amazing. You'll charge up in 20 minutes or so.
Yeah. And I can go get a cup of coffee or go shopping or whatever. That's it's 100% charged. My car's 100% charged up. I have 83 miles. Good to go.
Which makes that dinner table conversation with his daughter even more meaningful.
If every individual, we just contribute one little drop,